The first item on the order paper is the motion in the name of the Chief Whip of the Majority Party. Honorable Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, House Chair. Maybe before we read this motion, let's thank all our colleagues in the Chief Whip's Forum who we have consulted on this motion. And again, thanks their understanding for allowing us to put this motion to the House. Honorable Deputy House Chair, we move that this House elects Mrs. Y.N. Posa to preside during today's sitting of the House when requested by a presiding officer to do so. Thank you very much.
I now put the motion. Are there any objections? No objections agreed to. The Secretary will read the first order of the day.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Higher Education and Training.
I now recognize the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
We move the House Chair that the report be adopted.
There's a request for declarations, the DA.
Thank you. Chairperson, members, who would have thought that this government would be neglecting our youth, particularly the poor and rural youth, and choose to focus on the elite? The budget of the Department of Higher Education and Training is slanting more and more towards university funding, while in-service training, TVET colleges, and continuing education is getting a smaller percentage of the budget. To illustrate, government has undertaken in the 2014-2019 medium-term strategic framework to grow the number of students in the TVET sector from 670,000 to 1.2 million in 2019. Since priorities have changed, and all signs are that this important and significant goal will not be achieved in the next 2 years. The headcount at TVETs is expected to remain at about 700,000 students. What is more, our public TVET colleges received only 61.6% of the budgets for this lowered figure. Worse, the National Financial Student Aid Scheme is extremely slow to transfer monies due for student fees to the colleges. This is causing extreme hardship for colleges and eventually students that rely on this money for transport, meals, and accommodation. We know that the throughput rate for students at TVET colleges is a matter of concern. We are also concerned about the small number of students at continuing education and training centers. How bad the situation is, we don't know, as the Portfolio Committee was informed that this information is not available. If it was deemed important, it would have been resolved long ago. And the Auditor General confirmed that it was impossible to check the accuracy of the reported performance information. Our country is in dire need of young artisans, and the target was to deliver 30,000 qualified artisans per annum. We are only producing 60% of this. This budgetary report has had to be rushed through the committee. It was presented and adopted at the same meeting.
Your time has expired.
This, the DA cannot support. I thank you.
Thank you very much. EFF.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Fees can fall and must fall. The EFF will reject all reports tabled by the Department of Higher Education until the report recommends that free quality higher education for all be implemented immediately. The government, which is willing to spend 1 trillion on a nuclear deal, has allowed the Guptas to steal billions of rands from the country and is considering to bail out SOEs with the PIC money, has the money to fund free quality education for all. The taxpayers' money of South Africa must be used for the current and future benefits of people of South Africa, and not so Ubabaga Tutuzani can get rich. Students throughout the country know this, and that is why they continue to struggle for the attainment of free quality education for all. We support all students in this struggle because we know it is possible. Free education today, economic freedom tomorrow. Amandla, we reject this report.
Thank you. ANC? Oh, IFP. Honorable members, if you're gonna make a declaration, could you please occupy the seat while the other speaker is on the podium? Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. I was expecting my member on higher education to occupy this where I'm standing, but he is not here. But having said that, I think the real problem with having no fees at higher education is the amount of corruption that's taking place within government. And if we had to save the kind of money that's just being wasted, fruitless, irregular, wasteful expenditure, then our students would certainly be able to benefit from free higher education. We know that South Africa needs to develop a skills base that would ensure that our younger people seek employment in the world of work. The employment amongst the youth is the highest, I think, in the world. If you compare to standards of other countries, it's about the highest. And if we do not keep the youth gainfully employed and engaged, then we are certainly going to have problems moving forward. I think we hear of other countries, Western countries, and even African countries, where they place a lot of emphasis. Cuba itself has placed a lot of emphasis on educating the youth, free education. And that's something we need to do. But we've got to get our basics right, because even at a primary level or a secondary level of education, the conditions and the environment is not conducive for those that did not benefit pre-1994 from getting good education. They are still finding themselves in dire straits. We've got to get trained teachers, we've got to have proper infrastructure, and we have got to have proper skilling at the primary and secondary education level, so that when our young people go to tertiary institutions, they could use their foundation to develop themselves into better human beings and people that can place themselves in the world of work. So we are seriously concerned as the IFP that this report has not as yet been made publicly available, and that our students at tertiary institutions will continue to suffer because they will not have enough resources to be able to pursue their dreams. Thank you.
Thank you. NFP?
Thank you very much, House Chairperson. The Department of Higher Education and Training has the responsibility to ensure that our young people have the opportunity to further their education after completing matric. This is the department responsible for forging the nature and scope of our future professionals, entrepreneurs and artisans, and was allocated 64.4 billion in the 2016-2017 financial year to implement its mandate. Apportioning the budget, the lion's share is allocated for universities following the Fees Must Fall campaign. However, House Chairperson, there is great uncertainty on how university fees would be structured in the 2018 academic year, and the National Freedom Party repeats its call for the President of the Republic to release the content of the Higher Commission report as a matter of urgency. Chairperson, time is of essence as our universities and TVET colleges have to prepare for the 2018 intake and registration. And this report must therefore be released as a matter of urgency. If the report is not released soon, we will be faced with chaos at the start of the next year academic year, with massive disruption and widespread discontent. We know that the department overall performance on its service delivery targets has been increasing over a 3-year period from 2014 to 2015 to 2016-2017, but does not leave room for improvement. As is currently reported at an achievement rate of 80, which is commendable, but does not leave room for improvement. We do, however, share the concern of the committee about the non-achievement of the planned targets in the core delivery program in the TVET colleges. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. ANC?
Thank you very much, House Chair. As the ANC, of course, we rise in support of the BRRR report. House Chair, this report indeed was adopted in the committee. We all know that there are timelines within which we have to adopt this report, so it cannot be said that we have simply rushed through this report. indeed, various members, including the opposition, largely the DA, submitted substantial additional recommendations which are included in this report, and I'm not sure if we must reject that also now. We have to look at what the report actually sent us. The report tells us the following, that there was increase in the allocation of NSFAS of 11.382 billion, which was in 2016-17, from what we had in 2015-16, which was 6.448 billion. That certainly is not the elite we are talking about. Those are the poor and the working class people. We've had at the TVETs, the technical and vocational and training colleges, the target that had to be ensured of 200,000 qualifying students are funded, and that was exceeded. Certainly those at the TVET colleges are not the elite. The skills development sector achieved 148,517. The target was 120,000. Those are work-based learnership opportunities that are there. Certainly they are not the elite, they are the poorest of the poor in the country. 21,188, the target was 21,110. Again, new artisans qualified per annum was 30,804,
Unfortunately,
where
your
the
time has
target was
expired.
30. So certainly we agree that we must support this
Your
thing.
time has expired.
We equally ask that the report of the HERE Commission must be released. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections?
Chairperson, please note the objection of the DA. Thank
The
you.
DA's objection is noted. Thank you very much. Would we
Chairperson, also note the objection of the EFF and especially to the word TVET.
Honorable member,
And especially
it's
to the
enough,
word
it's
TVET.
enough, thank you. So the motion is agreed to and the objections are noted. The secretary will read the second order.
Consideration of budgetary review and recommendation report of Portfolio Committee on Health.
I now recognize the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thanks, House Chairperson. I move that the report be adopted.
There has been a request for declaration. DA?
Honourable Speaker, it is evident that there are major challenges within the South African healthcare system. It has time and again been shown that various provincial departments are in shambles. The life of Esidimeni crisis, as well as the KZN oncology crisis, is a clear indication that the health department is failing South Africans. In response to a DA parliamentary question, the minister revealed that there are several staff shortages in the public sector. These 38,000 vacancies put an additional strain on existing personnel, which are already overworked. This is one of the reasons why the medical negligence claims have skyrocketed to the massive amount of 2.6 billion in the past 4 years. Infrastructure is a major concern. Out of 44 community health centers which were planned to be constructed and revitalized, only 22 were completed. Out of the 8 hospitals that were planned to be constructed or revitalized, only 3 were completed. The department is not reaching more than half of its goals when it comes to the infrastructure, and is very worrying as the vast majority of South Africans have to suffer in inadequate health facilities. It is utterly shocking that irregular expenditure at the NHLS has increased by 990 million in just 1 year. Even more shocking is the fact that its deficit increased by 2.2 billion over the same period from a surplus of 273 million the previous year. The NHLS is obviously in serious financial trouble, and questions must also be asked about its financial management and how it got to such serious levels in just 1 year. We need urgent intervention by the Minister, and the Democratic Alliance urges him and his department to carry out their mandate to ensure that South Africans get the healthcare that they deserve. I thank you.
Thank you. EFF?
Thank you, Chairperson. The EFF rejects the budgetary review and recommendation report of the Department of Health. Our main priority now as a nation should be to ensure that we get the national health insurance working, to provide quality health care for the millions of Black people who are presently without medical aid. We need to completely abolish the dual nature of our health system. One private, providing good services and only for the middle class and the rich. While on the other hand, we have public hospitals which are death concentration camps for the majority. To do this, we need to start investing on improving the quality of public health care in this country. This must include a qualitative massification of health provision across the length and breadth of this country. It will entail zero tolerance to corruption. This report shows us that the Auditor General noted that the National Health Laboratory Service had incurred irregular expenditure to the amount of 1 billion. That provincial departments, such as Mpumalanga, incurred irregular expenditure to the amount of 1.5 billion. Moreover, David Mabuza, the corrupt agent of destruction, is rewarded with a promise of being a president by Duduzani's stepmother. The ANC rewards corruption and we cannot tolerate it in EFF. Thank you.
Thank you. IFP?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, firstly, I do not serve on this committee, but I've read the report in detail. And I say as the IFP, we associate ourselves with the recommendations in the report. It's a report that spans 30 pages, and we just hope that these recommendations are just not nice words written on paper, but these are recommendations that the Honorable Minister really needs to follow up, and his work is cut out for him. I just want to highlight two issues. One is in relation to the National Health Laboratory Service. We see in this report, Honorable Chairperson, that the NHLS generated a deficit amounting to 1.88 billion compared to 273 million surplus in the previous financial year. Now, this is certainly cause for concern, and I think two of the provinces, in addition to Mpumalanga, are Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal, who are just not paying the amount of money that they should be paying to the National Health Laboratory Services. And the department really needs to sit with the provincial departments and with Treasury to come up with an acceptable model so that these departments pay what is due. Because what happens is service delivery is being compromised when the NHLS does not get all the money. The second area that I've picked up in this report, Honorable Chairperson, is that in some instances and in some of the programs, the money has been spent, 100% of the money allocated to that program has been spent, but when you look at the performance indicators, they're down to 70%. Now, something's wrong there. If you cannot achieve your performance targets, but yet you're spending all your money. So is it that the other money is going into somebody's pocket? Lastly, Honorable Chairperson, I think we need to do more about the prevalence of HIV and AIDS in our country. There seems to be a slowdown. More and more people are contracting this disease, and it's possibly because we are placing more emphasis on the curative side rather than the prevention side. We had ABC, we've forgotten about that, and we need to accelerate that program. Thank you.
Thank you. NFP?
Thank you, Chair. I'm presenting this report on behalf of my colleague, Honorable Imam, who serves in the committee. The good work and performance of the department during previous months has been unfortunately been overshadowed by the sad loss of life which unfolded in the life Esidimeni tragedy. This dark cloud of shame will hang around the neck of the department for a very long time, but that should not distract us from the many gains the department continues to make in its quest to bring quality, affordable health care for all our people. We agree with the committee in urging the department to improve its audit outcomes and aspire to achieve a clean audit and to put measures and systems in place to minimize and eradicate all forms of unauthorized, wasteful, and fruitless expenditure. We also agree that department should make every effort to improve oversight of our provincial departments regarding the implementation of the Auditor General recommendations, in particular those relating to the management of pharmaceuticals, the use and maintenance of equipment and infrastructure, as well as their information technology. Moreover, in light of life Esidimeni tragedy, we fully endorse the recommendation that the department must ensure improved oversight of our provincial departments regarding the implementation of mental health policy framework and strategic plan of 2013-2020. The NFP implores the department to take heed of detailed recommendation the committee has made with regard to the entities of the department. It is imperative that the entities perform at optimal capacity in support of the massive challenges facing the department to bring quality, affordable health care for all our people. We support the report.
Thank you very much. AIC?
Thank you, Chair. Honorable Chair, I should mention from the onset that I have not been party to some of the discussions through which this report emanates from. However, I have had pleasure of sitting in this committee many a times. The report of the committee highlights a constellation of achievements and challenges by the department. The department has tentatively been hard at work. For instance, the AG's reports made the following findings: that the department had spent all of its budget, yet only achieved 55% of its objectives. This cannot be allowed. We believe that the mental health standards have to improve across the board. The Esidimeni episode was a function of poor workforce norms and standards arising from the private health care givers this time around. Honorable Chair, the implementation of KPIs by senior government managers should be closely monitored by HODs. Honorable Chair, health facilities in the provinces are deplorable. The report refers to this anomaly extensively. Honorable Chair, our concerns have always centered around the enormous powers that are granted to the MECs in the provinces. The irregular expenditure that provinces incurred cannot be tolerated. This has the negative effect of affecting the quality of health services. We propose the following in this regard: that Section 25, subsection 1 of the
Unfortunately, your
National
time has
Health
expired,
Act-
Honorable Member.
We support the report.
Thank you very much. ANC?
Enkosi sihlalo wendlu wisomthetho namalunga bekekekileyo. Masibulele ikomiti ipati ezithe zabe azikhona ekomitini yaye zayamkela lengxelo yekomiti nereport. Kulusizi ke into kokuba umuntu ekomitini uzawufika yamkela ireport kodwa xa efika apha ayikhabe. Kodwa ke kubalulekileyo ukuba masitsho ukuba isebe lizile phambi kwekomiti ngomhla we-10 ka-August lazokubeka ingxelo yayo. Sayamkela kodwa ke we criticized in areas where we think that the department is very weak on them. And the Auditor General did raise a couple of issues that are quite a challenge in the report, which among those will be that the management of the pharmaceutical, the maintenance of the medical equipment, the infrastructure, and the information technology. Kufana ke nezikhewu ezingaba zikhona HR area of the Department of Health. In this sector, we are and we accept that that is a challenge. Siyavuya ke nekokokuba i-province ezine, including i-department, zithe, they passed, they had the unqualified report. Ekubalulekileyo into yokuba i-Free State ithe ya-improve. Siyile committee ke siyi-African National Congress, siyayamkela le report, yaye siyakuvuma ukuba i-department inabo ubuthathaka, kodwa kufuneka siyazi into yokuba apho ezempilo zikhona zisemaphondweni. Sinexhala ke siyi-African National Congress, yaye sizinikezele into yokuba sizawuqinisekisa into yokuba i-department iyamonitorisha incedise amasebe o emisini HLD in particular into yokuba izikhewu mazivalwe. Siyaphinda ke sithi African National Congress iyayamkela le report. Enkosi.
Siyabo. The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? No objections.
Please note the objection of the EFF.
Thank you. The objection of the EFF will be noted. The report is agreed to. The secretary will read the 3rd to the 6th order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources on study tour to Australia. Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources on oversight visit to Northwest. Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources on oversight visit to Gauteng, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga. And consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources on oversight visit to Free State Province.
Thank you. The chairperson of the committee, Honorable Luzipo, will introduce the report.
Thank you, House Chair. I will try to be a political octopus to present 5 reports for the adoption of by the House, by this National Assembly, on the study tour in Australia, the oversight that we had in the Northwest, the oversight that encompassed 3 provinces, Gauteng, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga, as well as the oversight in the Free State. Each of these important observations, in each of these reports, there is included observations and recommendations by the committee, which are intended to ensure that the department improve in its capacity to deliver on its mandate. Whilst we must continue to commend the work that is being done, we are of the view that there is a lot that has to be done. With regards to the oversight in Northwest, specifically focused on junior mining, we are of the view that the junior miners are facing serious challenges with regards to the issue of exploration on their companies in order to be one of the established in the mining sector, and that they continue to be the future of the mining industry. But due to the limitation in relation to the financial backup, they are unable to live up to their expectations. And therefore, it is in this context that we are of the view that there is a need to pay specific attention in ensuring that that is an industry that grows. In particular, with regards to black entrepreneurs. Most importantly, what we have said is that when you look in relation to the role that is being played by big mining companies, some of these big mining companies who have said there is a need to ensure that we change the rules, because once they continue to assist with funding, on the other side, they want to determine the appointment of members to the board. They also want to determine the project that must be undertaken. And on the other side, don't want to take liability on the failures of the project that would have been under their guidance. With regards to the oversight in Free State, we specifically focus on the question of illegal mining. we're making a recommendation amongst many that there is a need to develop a comprehensive strategy that first look on the question of small-scale mining, but on the other side, it must also attend to the question that we think relates to the protection of the borders of our country. Also, it has to be on the basis of ensuring that whatever that is there in terms of mining, there is a strategy where government will make a direct interventions. With regards to the oversight in Gauteng, Mpumalanga, amongst other issues is the unresolved matter of Lily Mine, which are of the view that no nation can survive, no nation can live when 3 mine workers are still unaccounted for. And on those bases, we say everything in our power and at our disposal must be done to retrieve the bodies of those Lily mine workers. Most importantly is that the results of the inquiry must be made public so that those who are responsible must face the consequences. Lastly, on the study tour in Australia, it is important to note the observations that we have made, that some of the mining companies that we have in this country, they also do trade and comply with the laws and legislations of the state of, especially of South Australia. And we expect a similar exercise. The level of cooperation between the state, the financial institutions, the institutions of higher learning is also a good example that we can learn from, including with investors in the mining industry. It is therefore on that note that I present these reports for the adoption of the House. And obviously we say there's still a lot that has to be done. And on that note, I thank you very much.
Thank you. The motion is that the reports be adopted. Oh, I now recognize the Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thanks, House Chairperson. I move that the report be adopted.
We have a request for declaration. The DA.
Madam House Chair, these reports cover a range of oversight visits which taken together speak volumes of the situation in our mining industry, what's wrong with it and what we need to do to fix it. The visit to Australia was extremely valuable. Here we went from our country, rated 74th most attractive destination for mining investors, to the 3rd rated mining jurisdiction of Western Australia, not South Australia. So it was an opportunity to get ideas on what we should be doing. This report has some valuable recommendations, but too late, the Minister and the Department have already moved decisively in the opposite direction. The report says there needs to be urgent action to support the mining industry. Instead, in the High Court in Pretoria today is the first of 2 big legal cases involving the Chamber of Mines, which represents 90% of mining operations, and the Department. Today's battle concerns the once empowered, always empowered principle of BEE ownership. Here's the second recommendation of the committee report. It says there needs to be a new cooperative relationship between government and the private sector. Well, that's not working well. The Minister, in contrast to this, has introduced Mining Charter 3, which will bring the industry to its knees. Since his announcement, more than 25,000 jobs have either gone or are in the process of going, and 51 billion rand in value was wiped off the share prices of mining companies. But the ANC will tell you that's fine. We'll have greater levels of black ownership of the industry. We'll do the math. 30% of nothing is nothing. If this causes the industry to collapse, it doesn't matter how big the BEE share, it will be worthless. Even your cronies won't be enriched. The West Australian government told us they understood that every mine was in business to make a profit, and said their attitude as officials was to help every miner make a profit within the rules. They know that's how investment and jobs keep coming. Contrast that to South Africa, where the DMR treats miners like hostile invaders. Is it any wonder mining companies are fleeing and job losses are mounting? Here's another recommendation from the Australian visit report. The groundwork done by Mining Pakisa must be taken forward. Everybody knows what happened at Mining Pakisa, or we don't, actually. We keep being assured that it was a great success, so how come no report, even after 2 years? Could it be that there was so little agreement that the whole exercise was a waste of time? There are some common themes in these reports. One is that illegal mining is gutting the industry and undercutting respect for the rules. It took the department a year to really properly start acting against illegal chrome miners in Limpopo. Now, that is either incompetence, or officials are really scared of the gangsters who are running these operations, or that the gangsters are enjoying support right from the top. And by the top, I mean even in this House. Whatever the reason, we heard on the Free State visit that there are more than 10,000 illegal miners underground in the old workings at any one time. 10,000. There's a lot of talk about it, but very little action. I'm convinced that despite the calls for a plan from the DMR that are recommended in this report, that nothing effective will happen. The report on Northwest is both good and bad. Good in the sense that it recognizes the difficulties of new entrants into the mining industry to get a foothold. Part of that is the difficulty in raising capital. Another part of that is the thicket of regulations that they have to negotiate in order to start up. Unfortunately, this report explains the problem well, but then it recommends solutions that won't help. It says we must force landowners to lower their rents charged to miners. More government intervention and less empowering of land's rights holders is exactly what causes traditional communities to lose out in mining. There seems to be very little recognition that local communities and holders of land rights need to benefit properly from mining happening on their land. State intervention almost uniformly has adverse results for everybody. We must cut regulation, not add to it. Now, this shouldn't be just a discussion about isolated and theoretical points of difference. These themes are playing out in the closure of the Cook gold mine just a few days ago. 7,000 people lost their jobs. Cook epitomizes what is going on in the industry. It's been plagued by illegal underground mining. In common with all the other major mining houses who are left in South Africa, the uncertainty caused by the Mining Charter and the MPRDA have diverted the company's interests elsewhere. Clearly, they have no more appetite for the risks posed by South African mining. They've decided it's just not worth carrying on with a marginal mine. 3 of these reports we'll support. Some of the recommendations of the Northwest report we'll vote against.
Thank you. EFF.
In Limpopo, 2 mine workers died in Bogoni mine near Bechersfort and 1 in Brakfontein. And shortly after Bogoni, mine fired all its 2,600 employees because the mine wanted to install machines under the disguise of mine and care maintenance. And in March this year, 2 mine workers died after they were crushed by a machine at the Matla mine in Mpumalanga. This after 16 mine workers died in Mpumalanga. This year alone, in other mines. In July, 3 miners were killed in Orkney mine in Northwest after an accident that could have been prevented. In Free State Province, Elan Shaft mine in Velkom, 24 mine workers were killed, and to date, the police investigation has failed to provide answers to what caused the accidents, and no one is held accountable. On Monday this week, the Chamber of Mine reported that a total of 76 mine workers have been killed in 2017, compared to 73 reported in 2016. This is the state of mining in South Africa. Mining companies continue to make profits, mining workers continue to earn peanuts and get killed in the process, as South Africa benefit little. Simane ke sintshontshelana, sisiya kwezi oversight, zibiza imali enkulu, zikube kungekho nguqu yenzekayo ezimayinini. EFF sithi until izimbiwa sizibeke zibe phansi kohulumende ukuze abantu bakuthi bazuze sizokwazi uba noshishino olululo oluzawubangela bakubekho imisebenzi ebantwini bakuthi. Sithi ke abo bathi lonto yokuthatha izimbiwa uzifake phansi kohulumende ayinakwenzeka lonto leyo. Bayithetha lonto leyo kuba bengogxelesha inqatha bejongene nezusu zabo bengonozuswane ezibomvana. Sithi ke izimbiwa ezi until uhulumende wakuthi azithathe athi mazibe phansi kwethu otha kokugqiba enze imisebenzi ukwenzele abantu bakuthi basebenze
Ngoba for as long as imines bawugugile nkwinti zikozuswana zibomvana sawusoloko singabantu bakuthi belamba bengafumani nix bawusikhwatsha kanicenga neni mani maqabane yinto kaloku sasiyilwela le nenkululeko itsho kwi-freedom charter ukuthi uzimbiwa phezu komhlaba naphantsi zizawuba phantsi korhulumente siqinisekise ubana ingxelo elikakhetsekile siyalinyanga kubantu bakuthi i-EFF asiyisapoti until nithathe izimbiwa bawugugile urhulumente. Nkosi.
Inkosi. IFP.
Thank you, Chair. Honourable Chair, not having been able to attend any of these oversight visits due to other parliamentary commitments, I would like to comment on the committee's findings in the provinces of North West, Gauteng, Limpopo, and Mpumalanga. First, Bakubong. Bakubong mine in North West, 52% of which was owned by the community. Today they only own 5%, and there are sensitive and complex community disputes about this issue. Honourable Chair, this only confirms the continued failure to recognise mine-affected communities as stakeholders with legitimate interests and a right to be heard. As always, though, the interests of the elite always trump over those of the poor. Why is that mine-affected communities are still missing from the negotiation tables, as well as being excluded from representation on the draft framework of substantial mining? In all provinces, the effects of illegal mining is distinctly apparent. Apart from the extreme danger to people in conducting such practices in abandoned mines, it also costs the country more than 20 billion rand per year in lost revenue. The playing field as regards illegal mining is spread over 6,000 plus disused gold and other mines across South Africa. With about 10% of this country's gold production being stolen and smuggled out of the country, no wonder illegal mining is now identified as a national threat. The community's proposals are very relevant and should stabilize this illegal industry negative social effects on nearby communities. Only by issuing permits and relaxing licensing conditions to accommodate small-scale mining, as the committee suggested, we would have some control over this out-of-control issue, which by default employs also thousands of people. I thank you.
Swange, NFP.
Chairperson, we welcome the report on the study tour to Australia, and we trust that our honourable members have found it to be enlightening and that the experience they have gathered there will be a valuable source of reference in the near future debates. In particular, we trust that the exposure to Australian mining laws and practices which are increasingly recognizing the rights of the Aboriginal people will be considered when exploring ways to ensure that all South Africans share in the mineral world of our country. The oversight visit gives us a first-hand insight into mining circumstances in the Northwest, Gauteng, Limpopo, Mpumalanga, and the Free State Province. And the observations of the committee should give the department cause to pause and consider what steps it should take to address the concerns of the committee. We fully support the various recommendations contained in this report. It is impossible to single out any one recommendation, but generally the LFP shares in the concern of the committee on mine safety and the need for more safety inspectors. Mining is by nature a very dangerous occupation, and the mining industry shares an obligation with the department to ensure that the working conditions of miners are as safe as can be. It is important that the department and the mining industry should cooperate fully in the interest of our mine workers. One life lost is one life too many. We would also like to see a more real and more rapid transformation of the mining industry. The NFP has consistently advocated for a minimum of 51% South African ownership of all our mines to ensure our people benefit from our country's rich mineral resources. For this transformation to accelerate, it is imperative that our mining charter should be finalized and implemented as soon as possible. In conclusion, Chairperson, the NFP support the adoption of the report as tabled here today. I thank you.
Stogoze.
Order,
AIC.
Chair. Chair. Where's
Honor-
Sheikh Iman? Yazi kushaya umoya engekho, NFP yenze kahle. Eish.
Continue, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Chair. The Portfolio Committee on Mineral Resources undertook an all-embracing study tour to Australia in mid-September. This tour was a research-finding mission. The committee chose Australia because of its technological advances in the mining sector. Honorable members, the Australian tour was a function of the emerging advances brought about by the Fourth Industrial Revolution. In its wisdom, the committee took upon itself to interact with the Australian mining community. This was designed to improve the South African mining technology, especially the equipment for the extraction of and processing of mineral resources. The understanding by the committee was that we needed to advance in scientific research and technological outputs. Moreover, the committee understood the need to upscale innovative portfolio outputs in uplifting the lives of ordinary South Africans, especially by beneficiating local commodities. Honorable Chair, the South African government has always benchmarked its health and safety measures against the international standards. Australia was a fitting outfit. The committee, therefore, wanted to improve our safety, health, quality, and environmental policies in the mining sector. Australia has the best SHEC policies in the whole world. Honorable Chair, this tour was therefore insightful. It was indeed not an exercise of wasteful expenditure. Honorable members, we have also established that the majority of engineers based in Australia are South African-born professionals. The debate that we may need to have in the near future is how best these skills and talent can be retained in our shores. Honorable Chair, the striking differences between the South African mining sector and Australia are to be found in the location of the mines. In Australia, the mines are secluded and miles apart from residential properties. The health and safety of residents is guaranteed, and no life is threatened by the toxic emissions. The Australians do rehabilitate their mines. We therefore support the reports.
ANC.
Thank you, Chair. Motlhomongwe ke laetse gore a ra tla mo re le maloko a palamente go robala mošomong. Se sengwe se ke se laetsang mo ke gore Department ya Mineral Resource e hweditše unqualified report. So se se laetša gore e na le boetapele jo bo hlwahlwa mo South Africa. Morena Mulasetulo a ke laetše gore the African National Congress as a movement of the people understand the aspiration of a future South Africa. Our people have given the ANC a mandate to govern and to realize the strategic objective of a better life for all. Experience in our country and abroad has taught us that unless our government, with its overwhelming popular mandate, takes decisive measures to transform the social and economic relations, it will be difficult for future generations to thrive as a nation united in its diversity. There is no sector in our economy wherein the devastation wrought by centuries of colonialism and apartheid is more evident than mining. The policies of successive colonial and apartheid regimes ensured that South Africa will remain a net exporter of a raw material and an import of finished value-added goods. As a result, unlike Australia, where mining has contributed massively to our industrialization and development, South Africa has never realized its true potential economy. It was by design and not accident that our country has remained relatively underdeveloped with a small manufacturing base and a large unskilled labor. This is the most critical factor that contributes to today's chronic unemployment, poverty, and equality. Through the oversight visit we have undertaken as a committee, we have witnessed that government has made a lot of progress in transforming the mining sector to reflect the demographics of our country in terms of ownership, control, and management. However, there are still many structural challenges that militate against thoroughgoing transformation. These include the monopoly tendencies of the South African mining industry and inequality support for new entrants, such as junior miners. The system is still skewed in favor of big players, both local and foreign. There is a worrying trend of declining employment as a result of decreasing mining activity in the Free State and other provinces. Mining is such an integral part of our economy that its decline has a negative impact on other sectors. Government is working with mining companies to support agricultural projects, and this has had a positive effect of mitigating the impact of falling mining output and boosting diversification in the economy. While these measures are welcome, South Africa is still on a treasure trove of resources beneath the soil that must be mined in order to grow our economy and create jobs. Our study tour to Australia has given us an insight into how a thriving mineral resources sector depends on a complex combination of factors, including one, technology, social and organizational factors, the legal framework, government policies, and support for the geological survey function. South Africa is obviously different to Australia. Hence, we need to take into consideration our unique conditions and historical factors. We need to increase our skills base and boost investment in local beneficiation of minerals. One of the lessons learned in Australia is that the tertiary education sector has to work closely with the state and the mining industry to develop the critical research, technological innovation, and other skills that are needed. Illegal mining has to be brought under control immediately, as it leads to many social ills that put pressure on the state, particularly our policy services. For almost a decade now, illegal mining has become quite prominent in Gauteng, Free State, Mpumalanga, Northern Cape provinces. Government has lost the revenue that should go to development of our communities. In conclusion, Chair, the South African economy benefited from high commodity prices in the previous decade. However, high value-added and labor-intensive exports have slowed. The future of mining belongs to smaller mining operations that also do exploration. We need to bolster competitiveness and focus in areas of comparative advantage that can draw more people into work. The ANC, we have noticed a trend by some opposition parties, in particular the Democratic Alliance and the Economic Freedom Fighters, that they tend to prioritize overseas trips more than oversight visit in our country. They also prefer to attend portfolio committee meetings where there are cameras and live broadcast where they will grandstand. Maybe they want to pop stars of the future instead of doing the boring aspect of the parliament.
Honourable member, please take your seat. There's a point of order.
Honourable House Chair, I suggest
on what rule are you rising?
92. I suggest that he sticks to the topic and not discuss the EFF.
Okay, honorable member, the point of order is sustained. May you proceed.
In conclusion, Chair, as the ANC, we appreciate the cooperation from the Ministry and the Department of Mineral Resources for always being accountable and providing support to our portfolio committee. The ANC has accepted all the 4 reports. Thank you very much.
Thank you, honorable member. Honorable members, the motion is that the reports be adopted. Are there any objections?
Chair, will you please note the objection of the DA to item 4, which is the oversight visit to the Northwest report? Thank you.
Okay, the objection is noted.
Honorable Chair, please note the objection of the EFF. Until you nationalize the mines, we object it.
Honorable member, your objection is noted. We will then move to the 7th and 8th orders.
House
the
Chairperson.
Secretary is okay. Honorable
House Chairperson,
Chief Whip.
it's in Rule 27. On behalf of the official opposition, may we congratulate you on your ascension to the chair today, and to let you know that we have a motion of no confidence in the Deputy Speaker, which hopefully will be debated. So it would be grateful if you treat this as a job interview. Thank you.
Honorable member, this point of order is not sustained. Shall we then proceed? The Secretary will read the 7th and the 8th orders together.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Police on study tour to United Kingdom. Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Police on oversight visit to police stations and specialized units in KwaZulu-Natal.
The Honorable F. Beckman will introduce the reports.
Thank you, Chairperson. Honourable members, fellow South Africans, on behalf of the Portfolio Committee on Police, I want to introduce the 2 reports, one dealing with the international study tour to the United Kingdom that took place between 18 and 31 March 2017 and to KZN from 31 July to 4 August 2012. The aim of the visit to the UK was to look at comparative perspective at policing issues, specifically in terms of police reform and transformation, management leadership, public order policing and the application of technology in day-to-day policing and evidence collection within the criminal justice system. A further focus was on the oversight of policing and mechanisms to deal with policing complaints, as well as the training of specialised units. In Northern Ireland, the committee met with representatives of the Justice Portfolio Committee and board members of the Northern Ireland Policing Board. Discussions were held with the Police Ombudsman for Northern Ireland, the management of the Northern Ireland Police Training College, and the Economic Crime Command and the National Crime Agency. The committee also met with the Parades Commission for Northern Ireland, who governs the public protest framework, and the Department of Justice. The main observations of our interactions in Northern Ireland translates to the following: a well-structured framework to ensure proper civilian control over the police services, with special reference to the Police Board and the Police Ombudsman. The strong focus on the independence of the oversight institutions and the accountability link to the Parliamentary Justice Committee. And thirdly, the specialisation function of the National Crime Agency and the importance of expertise in the investigation of organised and commercial crime. In England, the committee visited also the National Crime Agency and various institutions, including the Digital Policing Board and the Metropolitan Police Crime Academy. The main observations of our interactions in England translates to the following. 1. The investigation of organised crime is deemed to be a priority, and the interagency cooperation between agencies are important with respect to attaining success in investigations. The resourcing of specialised units is a prerequisite for success in the fighting of organised crime. The investigation of organised crime is digitally based, and sufficient investment is made in using digital investigations and evidence. The use of appropriate technology and body cameras for frontline policing members has become a necessity in the fight against crime because it protects officers victims and results in better prosecutions through guilty pleas. Organized criminal groups have set up bases in different countries, and there's a need for stronger and more effective transnational cooperation between police agencies. The committee noted that there are several agencies that has oversight over policing, and this helps secure the professionalism and ethics of the police. The Portfolio Committee on Police made 14 firm recommendations to the South African Police and DPCI flowing from our visit that will benefit the functioning of the criminal justice system and ensure a more strategic approach in dealing with crime threats that affect the well-being of our citizens. 4 recommendations relate to technology, and they are: the committee recommends that the SAPS invest in body-worn cameras for all visible policing units. The committee recommends that CCTV cameras are installed as a matter of priority in all community service centers throughout the country. The committee recommends that the SAPS reviews its technology support environment to strengthen its operational readiness in investigations against cybercrime. And the committee also recommends that the SAPS develop the Cybercrime Center as soon as possible, as it becomes a ministerial priority. With relation to our visit to KZN, the committee have tabled 17 recommendations with regard to our visit, especially dealing with issues of specialized units, the availability of operational vehicles, consequence management at cluster level, the rotation of the station management at the Umlazi cluster, telecommunication support in the rural areas, and the increase of detective support for the detection of serious crime. The committee also recommended that the South African Police appoints a permanent police commissioner in KwaZulu-Natal as soon as possible. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now recognize the Honourable Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you, House Chair. I move that the report be adopted.
Honourable members, the motion is that the reports be adopted. Honourable Member. I recognize Honourable Member, and then you will follow Honourable Member from the IFP and Honourable Member.
Chair, the DA would like to make a declaration. Thank you.
Okay, the DA would like to make a declaration. The EFF and IFP, NFP, thank you. We will then take their declarations. I will now call upon the DA.
Ngiyabonga Sihlalo. Chairperson, the Democratic Alliance is very clear that there are 3 pillars of effective policing. And any discussion, any activity we undertake as committees or as this House must focus on how we can strengthen and institute these pillars and how we can mitigate against individuals or against actions that detract from this. These 3 pillars are this. Firstly, professionalization. This means having competent leadership at the core and as the foundation of the police service, who hold each other and their subordinates accountable and who resist the politicization of the police service. Secondly, specialization, having focused, expertise-driven approaches in policing areas that require it, through specialized units and dedicated task teams. And thirdly, localization, which means we must customize policing strategies and management to local contexts in order to promote good relations between communities and the police in a way that is responsive to those crime trends in those communities. And what we saw from our trip in the United Kingdom is that these principles and these pillars are very well entrenched. When it comes to ensuring professional and accountable police leadership, we saw that the key role of the Northern Ireland Policing Board as an independent public body was crucial to building public trust. The Chief Constable is appointed according to a public appointment process similar to that envisaged by the National Development Plan. The Policing Board appoints the entire senior team of the Northern Ireland Police Service, from the Chief Constable, the Deputy Chief Constable, as well as the assistant chief constables. They hold them accountable, they develop the annual policing plan, and they monitor police performance against targets. When it comes to ensuring localization of the police, we saw a very strong focus on community-centered policing, and this is operationalized in local and neighborhood policing teams. This means that residents, civic associations, and other stakeholders in communities know who their Bobby on the beat is for their area. They build good relations, they can feed information, and they get responsive service when it is required. An absolutely crucial insight we gained from a meeting with the Northern Ireland Police Ombudsman, which is their equivalent of the IPID, is that they have the power and the ability to direct for an independent disciplinary hearing to be conducted if the police do not agree to implement a recommendation for a hearing against an offending officer. This remains one of the biggest weaknesses in our setup because very often the SAPs will re-investigate recommendation cases from the IPID, make a different finding, and therefore either opt not to pursue sanctions or they will impose a lighter sentence on the basis of their own alternative findings. This feeds into the weakening of accountability and ongoing impunity for misconduct in the police service. Turning to our trip to KwaZulu-Natal, this was a classic case of everything that is going wrong in the police service. Leadership instability, because hanging over the landscape of the shoddy policing in KwaZulu-Natal is the protracted process of trying to hold the suspended Provincial Police Commissioner, General Ngobeni, to account for the allegations of corruption and racketeering against her. The continuing reign of impunity means that operational officers on the ground and police stations suffer from not having responsive police management at provincial and at cluster level who can support them to ensure effective operations. Thus, we saw only partial implementation of the rural safety strategy at the Nongoma police station. In Richards Bay, trio crimes, namely house robberies, business robberies, and carjackings, were the most prevalent crimes, with the police failing to get them under grip. And finally, at the Umlazi police station, this was a hotspot of unmitigated disaster, with the Cleveland's hostel crisis happening right under its nose, literally around the corner. Until we have the political will to fix the fundamentals and get the basics
Honourable
right,
Member, your time is up.
the police will not get it right. We support the reports.
I now call upon the Honourable Mhlongo from EFF.
The reason why scientists often update themselves in the domain of health is because they want to be a step ahead of the pathogenic organisms that infect humanity worldwide. This, in our case, calls for us to build a new police officer. A new police officer who is completely different from the old Dana Sambe of the old order. A police officer who is armed with IT specialization, who is armed with higher education, a police officer who is armed with undivided loyalty to the country, he or she must serve. A police officer whose loyalty to the Constitution of the Republic remains unquestionable. This is what we have observed in our visit to UK. For this to happen, it needs coherent political leadership, not this which is just played by the Guptas that we have here on the desk next to me here. Because as long as you have that, you will never have this new officer that is required to fight the new sophistry of the criminals of the today. It is in this particular context that our visit to UK, we realized that when we met the business unit, which is called digital policing, embedded within UK policing, it calls for a patriotic business community that must actually play a critical role in the combating of crime. Hence, also funding or developing funding methodology that will ensure that policing is sustained over and over the period. The question of independence of Chief Constable as a head of police remains a crucial factor, unlike with us here, whereby the National Commissioner, we don't have even to date, we have got even the acting constable in South African Police Service, which then disempowers any progress in the fight against crime. Therefore, it is in this particular context that EFF noted in our visit to UK that we can never be able to fight or break the backbone of crime in South Africa as long as poverty exists amongst our people. We cannot also be able to localize policing in South Africa when we have so much huge areas that are occupied particularly by black people that are without any infrastructure, like what we saw, for example, in our visit to Eastern Cape, KwaZulu-Natal and elsewhere in the country. Coming back to our visit to KZN, KZN of late has become a killing field. It's a province where blood is flowing under the nose of the current leadership. Our visit to Umlazi police station, where the acting provincial commissioner stated quite categorically clear that some police officers are involved in the assassination of our people there, and they are investigating. Unfortunately, those investigations are not
Honorable member, your time is up.
Positive results. It is in this particular context, as EFF, we say this report will remain just a report. It will never see the light of implementation under Zuma-led government. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I'll now call upon Honorable Member Singh from the IFP.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson.
Speaker. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Member.
I want to bring to your attention, you're also marking your interview. Thank you.
Honorable Member, you are out of order. Thank you very much. You may take your seat. You may speak, Honorable Member Singh.
Thank you, Chairperson. I noticed 3 seconds have gone by and I didn't say anything. I think they're going to reset the clock. Unfortunately, Chairperson, I was not on the delegation to see the bobbies on the beat in the UK, although I live in the UK, I'm Kumas. However, I can speak to what happens in KwaZulu-Natal and policing and crime in KwaZulu-Natal. It is no secret that crime is out of control in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, and our policing services appear hopelessly unable to cope effectively in dealing with the overwhelming number of public complaints, charges, and in effecting necessary investigations and arrests. Now, Chairperson, this is due to a combination of factors, chief amongst them being poor leadership, poor management, low morale, and logistical incapacity. Our police garages are utterly mismanaged, which is also leading to decreased visible policing in our communities. Now, to talk about low morale and lack of facilities, I mean, it is shameful that senior policemen at the Bayview police station were involved in the theft of arms and ammunition, which they sold to crooks in the area. But having said that, there are also good policemen, Chairperson, because a group of Durban policemen resisted a bribe of 100,000 rand when they arrested somebody who was a drug dealer and he had drugs worth 500,000. So there's the good and the bad. Specialized policing units like the public order policing, tactical response teams, and the National Intervention Unit are undercapacitated and overburdened. A serious criminal element that's sweeping particularly KwaZulu-Natal is the issue of rhino poaching. And here, Honorable Chairperson, it doesn't take rocket scientists to work out that policemen and members of the judiciary are complicit in this heinous crime that's perpetrated against our animals. We really need the Honorable Minister of Police and Justice to get to the bottom of this, because we have information that even senior magistrates are letting these poachers off the hook because they have developed a disease called arthritis. And arthritis takes place when your hands go like this. I hope the Minister is not here. When your hands go like this, this is what is happening. Arthritis is crippling our country more than the effects of HIV and AIDS. So we really need to ensure, Honorable Chairperson, that IPID does their job well and gets to the bottom of these crooked policemen and women that we have in our society, whilst complimenting and rewarding those who do good work. Glebeland's hostel remains a hotspot of conflict, violence and criminal activity, with the crime of murder being the priority crime at the hostel. There are also allegations here too, Honorable Chairperson, of corruption, gun running and collusion with criminals by the very police who are meant to be protecting them. Low rate of arrest or the disarmament of residents at the hostel have only fueled the violence. This is a total failure by SAPS and requires urgent intervention. IFP supports the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I'll now call upon Honorable Member Kubisa from NFP.
House Chairperson, we welcome the report. And it appeared during the oversight visit that there is a need for members of the public order policing unit to be provided extensive training in crowd control. The long delays in maintenance of repairing vehicles and challenge of sole provided is a matter for concern. And visits to the police station in Chatsworth in particular, it was quite clear that all is not well in terms of service provided by SAPS, specifically wherein the authorities acknowledge their weaknesses and, more importantly, were able to tell the committee that they were even aware of the names and details of the criminals, including the drug dealers, but despite being aware, very little or nothing has been done. And Chairperson, it now appears that the SAPS in Chatsworth have made some major breakthrough, irrespective of the weaknesses. In many arrests have been made in that area. Whilst this may be the case, a lot of work needs to be done, as it now appears that drug dealing is the common issue in Chatsworth and is spiraling and is out of control. And a visit to the Tribal Alcohol Control Center, whilst in theory it appears to be functioning optimally, and in practice this clearly is not the case. Concerns are being expressed by members of the committee in terms of the long delays in response from South African police services. However, an undertaking has been given that a process is being put in place for greater coordination between all the relevant SAPS departments to accelerate the turnaround time in terms of response. What is very evident, Chairperson, is lack of oversight by provincial SAPs, as some of the challenges identified by the Portfolio Committee on Police can be prevented if the provincial department take greater interest in monitoring and evaluation on the services provided in the specific area. What is also clear, Chairperson, is the negative impact of policing in South Africa as a result of the challenges faced by the department in terms of appointment of the commissioners and deputy commissioners. And whilst we must acknowledge the SAPS is faced with the mammoth task of these challenges of crime countrywide as a result of the socio-economic conditions our people face, including having to inherit a very unequal society from the apartheid regime, there is a lot that still need to be done. We call on the department and the minister to address the challenges that have been identified. And of course, the issue of irregular and wasteful and fruitless expenditure must be dealt with immediately. And there should be consequence management for those who are not doing the job properly. And on the question of a visit to UK, what was learned in the
Honorable
comparative
Member,
study,
your time is up.
capacitation, training, and technology, and monitoring and evaluation, which are important. Thank you, Chairperson. We support the report.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I'll now call upon the ANC.
Thank you, House Chair. The ANC rises to support the report of the Portfolio Committee of Police Oversight visit to KZN and UK. The oversight visit on police station was done at KZN province between the 31st of July 2017 and the 4th of August. The purpose of the oversight visit was for the committee to evaluate compliance of specialized units and police stations in the following areas: Richards Bay, Kwanongoma, Pietermaritzburg, Umlazi, and Durban. We visited these areas to evaluate policing management and service delivery in deep rural and urban areas. The committee welcomed some of the progress made in policing management and service delivery in the rural areas of KwaZulu-Natal province. E.g., we have made an unannounced visit to Kwahlabisa police station, where we found the station commander who was committed to his work and doing his job excellently. However, the portfolio committee made the following recommendation in order to improve the state of policing and quality of police station and provincial management exercise in KZN. That the permanent provincial commissioner of KZN be appointed. That SAPS provincial management immediately appoint a head of support at the Hlabisa station. That all outstanding vacancies in the detectives be filled and the station receive the necessary support. That the outstanding murder cases at Libland's hostel be finalized. The murderers and hitmen be brought to justice as soon as possible. That a special session be held with all cluster commanders in the province to review their efficiency and support to stations. That the provincial and station level detectives increase their low convictions and detection rate statistics. That the SAPS provide training and mentoring support to all station commanders in the KZN province. The PC on police will have this coming Tuesday a special meeting on the implementation of the recommendation to ensure that policing in KZN is further strengthened. The ANC support the report of the Portfolio Committee on Police Oversight visit to KZN and UK. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member. The motion is that the reports be adopted. Are there any objections?
Well, Madam Chair, if you can register objection by EFF.
The EFF objection is noted. I'll then call upon. Come again. Oh yeah, you're right. Thank you very much. I've just been corrected. The motion is agreed to. Thank you very much. We then move to the 9th and the 10th orders.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Public Works on oversight visit to small harbors in southwestern Cape and Cape Town, and consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Public Works on oversight visit to small harbors on Western Cape, West Coast. Thanks.
I will now call upon Honorable HMZ Memezi to introduce the reports.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. The Portfolio Committee approved both oversight reports with clear observation and recommendations to the department. The portfolio made the following points. The Department of Public Works is the custodian of all government properties. The small harbors along the coast in rural areas of our country forms part of these properties. The small harbors and the State Coastal Property Development Unit of the Public Works Property Management Trading Entity has the operational responsibility to develop, maintain, and manage the leases of government's immovable properties on small harbors. The committee strategically divided its oversight work into two oversight visits to different parts of Cape Coast, the West Coast and the Southern Cape Coast in different dates. In the first visit, the committee visited the small harbors along the Western Cape West Coast and included the Hot Bay Harbor in Cape Town. On the second visit, the committee visited the small harbor along the southwestern coast line and Kalk Bay in Cape Town. Matters that emerged in the visit. Committee, in doing its oversight visit, the committee was aware of the intergovernmental functions of the structures such as Integrated Small Harbor Agency and the Harbor Steering Committee to ensure that the economic potential of small harbors were unlocked so that the people can benefit. The committee is further aware of the fact that the Department of Public Works, the Department of Environmental Affairs, and the Department of Agriculture, Forestry, and Fisheries have collective roles on the Integrated Small Harbor Agency to ensure that the rural communities along these fishing towns can benefit from the economic potential locked in these environments. The committee noticed the equally important leadership and administrative roles that the Western Cape Provincial Government and the Cape Town Metropolitan Council played to ensure the functioning of these harbors and the unlocking of its socio-economic potential. The contestation that was reported between the Swartland municipality over the damaged parking area surfaced at Eiserfontein Harbour was noted. The documentary evidence showed that this resulted due to miscommunication, rather an agreement between the Department of Public Works and the Swartland municipality on the issue of payment of a particular amount being paid. It had to be noted that the Department of Public Works played its role as a custodian of the property of Eiserfontein, and that it spent 3 million to build a new slipway, upgraded the harbor wall, and installed the dollos that break the force of the waves and regulate wave action to make entering and exiting harbors easier for boats. The dollos were manufactured in the area close to the fish delivery and collection area and had to be transported from the manufacturing site to the harbor. Due to the weight of the dollos, the trucks damaged the tar and the paving of the harbor. It is crucial to note that this was responsible action on the part of the Department of Public Works, as it must ensure that rural fisher people can enter the harbor safely. The municipality on its part took responsible action to fix the damage to the parking areas safe. In these rural communities, the economic potential of small harbors that should form the bedrock of social improvement for disadvantaged communities that live in the rural surrounding areas where small harbors are situated in actual not always unlocked because the integrated small harbor agents does
Honourable
not function
member, your time is
optimally.
up.
The committee already approved the report. The House must note the report.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now recognize the Honourable Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
House Chair, we move that both reports be adopted by this House.
House Chair, the Democratic Alliance would like to call for declarations.
Okay, I think you're a bit faster than me, but it's fine. I was going to ask if that the motion that the reports be adopted. Are there any objections? Okay, the DA has asked for declarations. I will now recognize Honourable Member Fick.
Honourable House Chair, The purpose of the oversight visit was to the Small Harbours and State Coastal Property Development Unit of the Department of Public Works' Property Management and Trading Entity. The unit has the responsibility of development, management, leasing, maintenance and creation of job opportunities in the 12 proclaimed harbours. The economic potential of the small harbours can, if managed properly, be the catalyst of social improvement of communities that live in the surrounding areas where small harbours are situated. In order to facilitate the functioning of the small harbours, a decision for the establishment of the Integrated Small Harbour Management Authority was made way back in 2005, but to date, ISHMA is not fully operational. It is unacceptable that this has taken so long, as it has negated the possible socio-economic development of communities in these rural areas where the people do not have work opportunities. What we witnessed on our visit was exactly the opposite to what was intended. There was a blame game between the Department of Public Works and the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries. They were mostly unsure of who was responsible for performing certain functions. There appeared to be a deliberate blockage in communication between DAF and DPW. The confusion was caused partly because the leasing of the harbour sites was done by DPW, the revenue was collected by DAF, and the maintenance was the responsibility of DPW. The harbours are mostly underdeveloped, and in some harbours there are sunken vessels that need to be urgently removed. We also found that in Stilbaai, Gansbaai, Arniston, there were no electric meters for cold storage, resulting in electricity not being paid for as usage could not be recorded. In Arniston, there was inadequate lighting, creating a security risk. In Struisbaai, we found no public toilets, a new storage container paid for but not connected, and only one ablution facility for male and female staff. Security at the harbours was inadequate, and as a consequence, harbour masters, who are mostly female, feared for their lives on a daily basis. Hout Bay is one of the worst, where criminals roam the place freely and people were frequently robbed on the harbour premises. Poaching, selling of drugs and entry by illegal immigrants is also a serious problem. The lack of security, they say, was due to the lapsing of a safety and security project under the Extended Public Works Programme. In Gansbaai, offices are regularly burgled. Lease agreements entered into were way below the market value. When questioned about the reasons for this, the DPW responded that this was the agreement with the lessee in exchange for maintaining properties. In Stilbaai, there are 3 tenants paying extremely low rentals, 258 Rand, 380 Rand, and 77 Rand per month for rental of prime property. This equates to a total of 8,580 Rand per annum. In Arniston, one of the businessmen present complained that he was expected to pay a 1,000% increase on his lease. I asked him what his current rental was, and I'm still waiting for the figure. Non-maintenance of slipways and equipment is another major problem. This is total violation of the Occupation, Health and Safety Act. Most cranes and winches are in a state of disrepair. At Kalk Bay, there is a winch that is designed to pull boats of up to 60 tons into the dry dock, but cannot manage to pull a 40-ton vessel, then it starts slipping. Action will only be taken one day when someone gets injured or worse still, gets killed. Slipways are at most harbours needed renovation as they are cracked, causing sand to be washed onto the slipway that makes usage dangerous. It is also regrettable that the once thriving Lusitania building in Gansbaai is neglected and in a state of disrepair. And this is not an isolated occurrence. The small harbours employ too few experienced staff, while there is a desperate need. Reasons given for the vacancies was due to budgetary constraints. Is it not ironic that while there are not enough funds to reduce the 9.4 million people without jobs, that there is money for the president to pilfer? A decision was taken at national level that if any staff retired or died, they would be replaced. The former could be managed, but the latter creates a problem. This while there is a shortage of dockers who are employed by DAF. At small harbours, dockers' main activities include slipway management, maintenance and cleaning of boats, and controlling and collection of monies for access to the harbours. At Stilbaai, the docker occupied a flimsy, non-permanent structure that leaked whenever it rained. The report is accurate, and the DA supports the report. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I will now call upon EFF, Honourable Talisa.
Thanks, Chair. Small harbors in the Western Cape are grossly underfunded, with too little money allocated towards these harbors, and the money that is allocated being mismanaged or stolen. The people who are most affected by this are small-scale fishing communities who have been reliant on the ocean for centuries to support themselves and their families. These communities face an onslaught from all sides. Multinational companies are destroying fish stocks. But instead of ending this, the government cuts the quotas of small-scale fishermen. On top of this, the harbors which are vital for fishermen continue to deteriorate and be neglected. This department clearly has no political will or capacity to help and support fishing communities in the Western Cape and the country. This is also the same department that does not even use a professional financial asset register and instead uses Microsoft Excel despite having paid for one. The incompetency and mismanagement of this department is helping to destroy the fishing communities throughout the Western Cape. And for this reason, we reject the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now call upon Honorable Singh from the IFP.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I'm really working hard for the 4.5% increase projected. Honorable Chairperson, I was not part of this visit, but as the IFP, we certainly do appreciate that our small harbors are key to the livelihoods of small-scale fishermen. Having said that, Honorable Chairperson, I note from the report that was tabled and from the comments of my other colleagues that certainly these harbors are not well managed, and it is common knowledge that their employment and local economic development potential is far from being maximized. Small harbor development is essential if government is serious about poverty alleviation in our fishing communities and surrounds. This includes the repair and upgrading of slipways, the dredging of harbor basins, the removal of sunken vessels, and installation of security measures. The current slow pace of implementation in this regard undermines socioeconomic development and must be addressed. Honorable Chairperson, once again, poaching of a different sort, not rhino poaching this time, but fish poaching, marine resources poaching, remains a very real threat to the sustainable use of our oceans and marine life ecosystems. Whilst poaching may provide short-term gains to small fishing communities, it will destroy them in the long term. Having said that, Honorable Chairperson, the bigger threat to our marine resources is foreign trawlers coming into our seas and depriving us of tons and tons of our fish, which ordinary people in our communities could benefit from. And this is something that the police, justice, and all other enforcement agencies must be heavily involved in to ensure that these foreign trawlers don't come and rape our marine resources. Also, Honorable Chairperson, educational programs and greater marine policing is necessary to not only educate local communities against the dangers of overfishing, but to also arrest and successfully prosecute those found transgressing our laws. Far too often we find certain fishermen who catch a few more shad than they should catch, especially in Durban, or they catch the wrong size shad, or they catch a few more crayfish than they should catch, being given heavy sentences and heavy penalties, yet they're doing it for a livelihood. Although we cannot condone those that do it just for economic gain. But having said that again, stricter measures must be taken against all these foreign trawlers that come into our oceans and rape our marine resources. We support the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Shilembe from NFP.
Chairperson, the NFP agree with the session of the committee that there is a vast economic potential for small harbors that needs to be unlocked. This economic potential of small harbors could well form the bedrock of social improvement of communities that live in the surrounding areas where small harbors are situated, and should form an integral part of the rollout of Operation Pakistan. The report contains several important observations and recommendations which we support, By necessity, tapping the full potential of our small harbors will require that the Department of Public Works will have to work hand in hand with other departments such as agriculture, forest, and fisheries, as well as the Department of Environmental Affairs. Optimizing the potential of our small harbors is not and should not be restricted to subsistence fishing and the conveyance of goods only. The tourist potential for small harbors need to be investigated, and in particular, the interest of the hospitality and food and beverages sectors should be explored. In this sense, we believe that the Department of Tourism and its entities might be of assistance to the Department of Public Works. Safety and maintenance issues at our small harbors are, however, reason for concern. If we are to maximize the potential of our small harbors, and if we wish to for harbor operations to proceed smoothly, then maintenance of infrastructure, slipways, cranes, and winches are essentials. In conclusion, Chairperson, the NFP supports the adoption of the reports as tabled here today. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. I will now call upon Honorable Adams from the ANC.
Honorable Chairperson of the session, Honorable Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Members of Parliament, colleagues, comrades and friends. Chairperson, the Small Harbours Revitalization Program, it's a program of the African National Congress to bring economic development to the poorest of the poor. Now, the point is that people that were never on the strip or were never there comes and talk about things that they don't even know about. And we need to express the value and appreciate the thanks of honorable members like Honorable Diane Kola-Barnard, who was part of this trip, and all the other members of the committee. And Chair, we really have found that in our visit to the small harbors, one of the points is that the African National Congress government has really put steps in place and are trying to put steps in place. They have appointed Kucha Development Corporation to oversee and look and refurbish these small harbors, Honorable Paulson. They have done the best they can. But you know, the point is that we have got a responsibility as well to talk to our communities, to engage in our communities, because small harbors are really and can really play a big role in the upliftment of the poor communities. And that is what the African National Congress has seized the opportunity to put in place the Small Harbors Revitalization Plan, the security of the harbors. So small harbors is not just a public works function alone. It's a vast function of different departments: agriculture, forestry and fishery, police, and all, Department of Environmental Affairs and as well. So small harbors can be great, and the potential is there that small harbors can deliver under the Operation Pakisa. And yes, there is a plan in place and work has already started in some of these harbors. But the problem that we have is that some of the buildings of these harbors are rented out to companies that's got 50 to 90-year leases that pays 1,000 Rand a month. Big companies like Oceana, Premier Fishing and all that. So that is part of the point that we really have to look at, the Honorable Paulson. And Chairperson, the ANC is really doing the best that it can. And I'm telling you that we have asked that the ministers must get together to solve this problem in terms of our small harbors, because our small harbors can be not just for fishermen. Our small harbors could be an economic hub for the local community, the local people that can sell the crafts, arts and products at our small harbors. So don't just focus on one aspect, because fishing, yes, it plays a big part in part of the small harbors, but our small harbors, it must really be an integrated small harbor, that can integrate and emancipate and uplift economic development in our various areas. So that's why I would say that let's give the ANC the due. They are doing good. You are doing nothing. You just come here, criticize. You don't even know what a harbor looks like. You don't even know what a crayfish looks like. You run away for a crayfish if a crayfish is served in front of you. So I want to say, if you want to criticize, come with criticism, positive criticism, because the ANC is doing its best.
Honorable Member Adams, please take your seat.
I just want to tell the idiot at the podium that
On what rule are you rising? Firstly, on what rule are you rising?
I want to tell this idiot at the podium, I know what a harbor looks like. I was born in Cape Town. I wasn't born on the farm like him.
On a point of order.
Okay. Honorable Member, you may come in.
I'm rising on Rule 84. The member is using unparliamentary language towards the member. Can you withdraw that, please? He said he's an idiot.
Honorable Member, it is true that it is unparliamentary to call another member an idiot. So may you please withdraw?
I withdraw. He's an idiot. He's a big idiot. Okay, I withdraw that.
Okay. Please, honorable members, let's conduct ourselves in a manner that will maintain the dignity of this House. You may proceed, honorable member.
No, thank you, Chair. Thanks that he recognized that he is the biggest one of them all. But Chairperson, in terms of the fact that the ANC government is...
Honorable Member Adams, take your seat.
Can you see how foolish he is now? He must withdraw that. That's unparliamentary language. You just rule that I was unparliamentary. Now you let this fool be unparliamentary.
Honorable Member, please withdraw. Honorable Member Adams.
Withdraw what, Chair? On a point of order, what must he withdraw?
You are not the chair when I sit down.
Honorable Member,
what do you want the promotion?
Okay,
You're not going to make it.
Honorable Member, I did not recognize you. Honorable Member, please take your seat.
Sit down, German cat.
Honorable Member, take your seat. May I please postpone the ruling on this one, where I had actually said the honorable member must. I want to first refer
Ask
and then.
him if he said so. Ask him.
I said biggest. What is biggest? Do you
No,
understand?
what did you say?
Honorable Chairperson, I don't think the member understands English or understands any language, Chairperson.
Honorable members, I am definitely going to rule. You know, I'm consulting and then.
This thing here is looking for
before
trouble.
the end of the
Chairperson,
sitting.
this thing here is
Please
looking for
take your
trouble.
seat.
And he's going to get it.
Honorable
He's looking for
member,
trouble.
please be orderly. Take your seat. Thank you very much. You may proceed, Honorable Member Adams.
No, thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, the African National Congress has even put in place harbour steering committees. The African National Congress has put in place a company called Kuga Development Corporation to maintain the harbours, the docking queues, the dredging, and as well as the removal of sunken vessels that destabilize and that damages other vessels. So, Chairperson, there is big work that the African National Congress has done. Now, I want to ask the honourable colleague, what has he ever done in his life positive? Nothing. That's why he can't even go into the townships of Cape Town without being chased away and without being talking nonsense. That's why his own party had to remove him from the legislature because he was a destructive
Rule
force
92.
He was a destructive force there, Chairperson. So, Chairperson,
Rule 92.
at the end of the
Honorable Member Adams, may you take your seat?
Point of order. This fool is insulting me here, and you allow him to get away with it?
No.
You are...
Honorable Member, I have said that I will rule later.
No,
I am allowed to rule later after consulting. For now, I want him to finish and then I will rule. Honorable Member, you're out of order. Honorable Member, I am definitely going to rule. Please take your seat.
Point of order. Madam
Honorable
Chairperson, is it parliamentary for the member to call another member a fool? Please rule on it.
Honorable Member, please withdraw that. It is unparliamentary to call a member a fool.
No, okay. I withdraw. He's a fool. He's a fat fool. Okay, I withdraw that too.
Honorable Member Adams, you may proceed.
No, thank you, Chairperson. And Chairperson.
Chairperson.
Honorable Member, you may come in.
Chairperson, I rise on Rule 86, reflections upon decisions of statutes, and also Rule, hey, hold on, Wena, and also on point on Rule 92.
Honorable
This
Member.
man here must not say things that he does not know, and he must not reflect on the law that he does not know. This House is busy with.
Honorable Member, I think this one on the reflections upon decisions or statutes, this one is not sustained. Honorable Member, you may come in.
Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson.
Yes, you may come in.
Yes, I need you to rule. Honorable Member
On which rule are you rising?
86. The reflections on an individual. Honorable Member has body shamed Honorable Adams. He called him a fat fool. I think this matter needs to be taken to the Ethics Committee. You
Okay.
can't body shame people. He just said he's a fat fool. So we cannot, we need to take this matter even further.
Okay.
It's way too serious than just a person.
Okay. All right, honorable members, I know that the rules allow you to speak, but it says you must speak softly so that you don't drown the speaker. I think he did withdraw immediately after he had said a fat fool. He did. Yes, he did.
Honorable
Okay,
Chairperson,
yes, honorable member.
Honorable Chairperson, I rise on Rule 92.
Rule 92?
Yeah, those honorable members on that side of the House are actually challenging your decision and challenging you, and that's out of order, Chairperson, and that needs to be investigated by the Rules Committee.
Okay, no, that's fine. Honorable members, in terms of the rules, if you are not happy with the ruling from the chair, you are allowed to appeal to the speaker so that the matter is considered in the Rules Committee. So it is a procedural matter. Thank you very much. Shall we then proceed, Honorable Member Adams? Or maybe let me also rule on the matter by Honorable Member Adams. Honorable Member Adams said after the Honorable Member withdrew, Honorable Member Adams said he is the big one. So I will then request Honorable Member to withdraw.
I withdraw, Chairperson.
Thank you very much.
Chairperson.
Proceed.
Now, this work that's happening on the small harbors, it's work that is created by the African National Congress to pump economy and to create work. To create work, the dredging of the harbors does not happen overnight. It doesn't fall from the skies of people from Mars. Now, any logical person can think that this dredging of the harbors, the Honorable Chief of the Opposition, it's labor consumption. And that is work for small business. That is work for the man on the street. And that is creating jobs, Chairperson. Now, Chairperson.
Order. Order. Not you, I'm referring to the side. There's not coming from this side.
The chief whip of the opposition comes from Durban, the coastal areas. He's supposed to know these things, Chairperson. He's supposed to know these things. But, Chairperson, the fact of the matter is that work is definitely being done on these small harbors. The interministerial committee which have met, public works, agriculture, forestry and fishery, environmental affairs, as well as the police, to look at the safety and the security of these harbors, to look at how these harbors can be integrated into economical hubs for the people and for the communities that it is in. And that is the plan of the African National Congress, to create work, not to break down like certain of our colleagues in this house with the red overalls that just wants to break down and destroy everything. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Well, Honorable Member, the member has already left the podium. I think you're a bit late. He has already left the podium. Well, honorable members, I would now, Okay, the motion is that the reports be adopted. Are there any objections? Where is it? It's not here. Where?
House Chair, please note the objection of the EFF.
Are you objecting?
Yes, House Chair.
Okay, honorable members, the motion is agreed to. We will register the objection by EFF. The secretary will read the 11th and 12th orders together.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries on oversight visit to Limpopo Province, and consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Agriculture, Forest and Fisheries on oversight visit to Knysna.
The chairperson of the committee, Honorable M.R. Siminya, will introduce the reports.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, in line with the Parliament constitutional mandate and to strengthen its oversight responsibility over the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fishery, the Portfolio Committee on Agriculture, Forestry, Fishery regularly undertake oversight visits to provinces to determine how the department implements its plans program as per strategic and annual performance plan, including the national policy priorities and the presidential pronouncement. In addition, the Portfolio Committee also undertakes oversight visits to determine how the department responds to the sectoral challenges, including the natural disasters and disease outbreaks. In its engagement with the Department of Agriculture, Forestry, Fisheries, the Portfolio Committee previously raised concern regarding the baseline data, particularly for activities that are targeted at smallholder producers, including the impact of the plan targets on service delivery. On Limpopo, Chair, it was against this background that the Portfolio Committee undertook the oversight visit to Limpopo on the 20th to the 24th July 2015. The purpose of our visit was to oversee the implementation of agricultural policy action plan through development of commodity value chain. Secondly, the implementation of the Fetsatlala food production initiative and support that is given to smallholders and subsistence producers to enhance food production at national and household level through programs such as Comprehensive Agricultural Support Program. Third, inquire into inland aquaculture development and the management of community forestry plantation and benefits that are derived from this plantation by local communities. After visiting various projects in different districts of the province of Limpopo in particular, committee le ya thabisha kudu ki district ya Vembe le province ya Department ya Agriculture le Rural Development ge ba ile ba thushana kudu le di farmera tša rena gona kua motseng wa Vembe, and se se re thabishang ke hore Naledi cluster ye leng hore mopresidente o ile a bolela ka yona ka nnete re rile re fihla kua ra kry-a ile hore kgoro le district ya yona ba thushana kudu le bo farmera potlana ba mo Ngwanedi. And ye nngwe re thabishitšeng kudu ke gore re le maloko a palamente ke gore tulong ya Vembe district motse o mongwe le o mongwe o na le dibjalwa le metlhare ya dienywa tše e leng gore ke thero ya rena ya tšatši ka letšatši gore batho ba ke direle ba ke jwalele gore ba kgone ke fepa ka dijo tšeo bona ba di lemileng. But it should be noted that one of the challenging things that we found was the challenges of market access and in some cases market infrastructure and transportation of the produce, where were the main challenges, and the delegation further noted the poor coordination and the intergovernmental relation were hampering progress throughout the province. Both the national department and the provincial department were not effectively responding to the beneficiaries' challenges associated with land claims, both agriculture and forestry projects. In this regard, the committee recommends continuous engagement between the Minister of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries and Rural Development and Land Reform to ensure that land reform beneficiaries have title deeds and are receiving the necessary post-settlement support. On Western Cape, the committee undertook the oversight visit to Nasna Kamrawa Masetla Pelwa Ilenga Wela Lona Lefilo Leo Ilogeri Lo Lekula Uri Molo Utlhareleng ko garden roots in Olo Mukakang u affectile di famara tja rena le bo bašomedi ba di famara ha kakang le hore tshenyo ye e dirilweng mo di famareng le mo.
Honorable member, your time is up.
This is the report of the portfolio committee. We request that you adopt it or note it.
Thank you, honorable member. I now recognize the honorable chief whip of the majority party.
Thank you, House Chair. We move that the House adopt these reports. Thanks.
The motion is that the reports be adopted. Are there any objections? I recognize the honorable member.
Chair, the DA would like to make a declaration.
I now call upon honorable member Steyn from the DA.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Chairperson, firstly, I want to thank the Chairperson of the Agriculture portfolio for taking the portfolio to Knysna after the devastation of the drought this year. We went almost a week after the fire. The portfolio conducted oversight in Knysna in June this year after devastating fires ravaged Knysna and the surrounding areas. It was reported that approximately 14,300 hectares of land was affected by the fire in the Knysna area and 10,000 hectares in the Plettenberg Bay area. 7 lives were lost, 2 which were firefighters. 483 houses burned down and 200 informal dwellers were destroyed. Of specific concern to the portfolio were the effect that the fires had on the agriculture, forestry and fisheries sectors. It became apparent that the forestry sector were badly affected and that although some opportunities for short-term jobs may exist regarding replanting, the long-term effects would only be known later, as it would take more than 10 years to replant the forests. We heard from Mr. Kanyemba from the MTO Forestry, a company that is managing forest plantations on behalf of the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, that most of their plantations were affected. He reported that MTO lost 10,700 hectares, which is 25% of plantations in the area of east of Knysna, and also lost 1 employee. What is apparent from our visit is that assistance regarding help for the agricultural sector after disasters is taking a long time, or that no assistance is granted at all. We were informed that damage assessment and verification, which would then lead to support for emergency repairs for critical infrastructure through the National Disaster Management Committee grant funding, could only happen after assessments were done. To release these funds, the affected area should submit a disaster report within 90 days, which is 3 months after the areas, before an area can be declared a disaster area. Only after that, a decision can be taken if any assistance could be provided. In some cases, that time frame is much too long. Proposals from the committee included that the minister should ensure that there are enough resources and capacity for DAF to effectively implement the National Veld and Forest Fire Act, and that DAF should take note of the model that has been used by the Western Cape government in managing the disaster, so that future outbreaks of veld and forest fires and other related disasters can be effectively and speedily addressed. The committee commended the efforts of everybody involved in ensuring that the fire was brought under control and that no more lives and property were lost. Parliament must take note of the struggle to get hold of disaster funding. We are aware that during the 2015-16 drought, the disaster fund was underspent by 300 million rand because no one requested funds. We are sitting currently in the same situation with the Western Cape, the Northern Cape, and the Eastern Cape undergoing a serious drought, but there's apparently no funds available. The second report deals with the Oversight report visit to Limpopo. I must note that it was during July 2015. I don't know why the report is only coming to Parliament now. We did find some positive results where farmers were taking responsibility for the land that they are working and were given, but at the majority of the projects we found a lack of cooperation between departments and that they were not responding to challenges and needs on the ground. And maybe Minister Nkwinti must listen. One of the examples was at Rochbach CPA, where we heard the cry that although the land claim was settled during 2005, the claim was not yet settled and no title was transferred to the community. This is causing extreme frustration and communities cannot take ownership of the farms transferred to them. The chairperson, Mr. Mtepe, explained that they tried everything to get assistance from the Land Claims Commissioner, but to no avail. This situation has caused the buildings and equipment being vandalized. Another finding is that of a high input cost to farmers. Communities find it difficult to make a living and to pay Eskom costs. This leads to electricity cuts and even further frustration in trying to make a living. Parliament must take note that sister departments are working in silos and that small-scale farmers and fishers are mainly left on their own. Minister Nkwinti, who is doing recap at the moment? There's a fight between rural development and land reform on who is actually supposed to assist farmers after they received land. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I will now call upon Honourable Member Paulson from EFF.
Thank you, Chairperson. The EFF rejects this Portfolio Committee report on oversight visits to Limpopo and Knysna. Chairperson, as the Honourable Chairperson of the committee said, we've got a constitutional mandate to conduct oversight visits. But let us see how this Parliament does oversight visits. We did the oversight visit in July 2015. It was tabled in the ATC in October 2016, and we must now consider it as Parliament in November 2017. Therefore, we are now basically just ticking off boxes and not concerned with the qualitative outputs in the work we do as Parliament. The visit to Knysna was meant to assess the impact of fires that wreaked havoc in the area on farmers and farm workers in early June this year. In fact, in the first week in June. Now, among the recommendations made in the report was that the relevant government departments must finalize disaster management plans so that the funds are released to assist affected farmers and farm workers. There was also meant to be a progress report on assistance provided by October this year. This hasn't been done. By tabling this report now, what improvements can we say we were able to offer as Parliament to affected farmers and farm workers? We have urged Parliament to take serious the potential impact on service delivery that these oversight visits could have, if only we were to take them serious, not as opportunities for tourism by members of Parliament. So therefore, Chairperson, until we take oversight visits to the various provinces to assess the conditions there and react on them as quick as possible and not wait for an entire year or 6 months to pass, we have to reject these reports on oversight visits. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member Pelson. I will now call upon Honourable Member Shelembe. Who? Mwabe. All right. My apology. I now call upon Honourable Member Mwabe.
Thank you, Chair. We note that the oversight visit to Limpopo was largely to oversee the implementation of the Fetsahlala food production initiative, as well as inland aquaculture development and management of forests in the province. The entire tenure of the report speaks of a positive oversight visit, and we are encouraged by the observation of the committee that the Vembe district of the Limpopo Department of Agriculture and Rural Development is noted and commended for their dedication and hard work in assisting farmers. Pockets of excellence such as these bode well for the future of agriculture in our country. Chair, we support the observation and recommendation contained in the report. In particular, we urge the department to heed the recommendations of the committee, that there be greater cooperation with different state departments to effect sustainable agricultural growth in the province. We also welcome the oversight visit to Naisna, particularly so since the area has been ravaged by runaway fires that has caused loss of life and extensive damage to property. We join the committee in commending the Eden District and the Western Cape government for the swift and proactive manner in which they had responded to the disaster. The NFP agrees with the recommendations of the committee, in particular that funding should be released as a priority to assist farmers who have sustained the damage. The extent and devastation of the fires underlines the need for prevention measures such as fire breaks to prevent or mitigate an outbreak of such scale. And to that effect, we support the recommendation of the committee that the department should ensure that there are sufficient resources available to effectively implement the National Field and Forest Fire Act. In conclusion, we support the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now call upon Honorable Member Apa from the ANC.
Thank you, Chair. As the African National Congress, we support the report of the Portfolio Committee on Agriculture and Fisheries. Ndiqale nje pha eNaisna. eNaisna xa siya pha abantu bebenengozi yokuvelelwa kukutshiswa ngumlilo. Kodwa xa sifika phaya izinto esizibonileyo siyazincoma kuba sibonile abantu bancedwe kanjani abebesengxakini. Futhi xa sekusenziwa indlela babazowuncedwa kanjani. Bekungabuza bazoncedwa na, kuthi bazoncedwa kanjani. Loo nto ibingena kwenzeka kunga-assesswanga ngeli gama lesilungu kuthiwa kua-assess uba how much is needed. And sixelelwe futhi phaya uba le nto izokwenzeka ngexesha elithile ayithatha xesha lide. Abantu ke phaya sibone enye into engummangaliso ukusebenzisana kwawo onke amasebe nazo zonke ezinye institutions ebeziphaya kude kusebenze ne-provinces kusuke kweyase-Western Cape base-Eastern Cape apha kubonisa uba lo rhulumente ungurhulumente osebenzisanayo. Ezo zinto zenza siyixhase ke le ngxelo yale komiti. Kodwa phaya eLimpopo ingavinhle into ibiphaya ke, because phaya eLimpopo as a committee we learned many things. One of them, we learned that there is a development in the process of integration. There is a process of working together between all departments and institutions. Apa kune Operation Pakisa ebonakalisayo ukuba zonke izinto zizokwenzeka. Ndiyathemba ukuba no Honorable Stein uzawuthula uzawubona kule veki zawo njengekudalanga. Ezi zinto zizokwenzeka kuyabonakala uba umphathiswa lento efunekayo wenza yona. Enye ke futhi esicakisayo, there is this part evelayo eimplementekayo ye framework ye comprehensive support with smallholder farmers. Lama farmer ngokuyacaca ukuba indlela ancediswa ngayo ivela macala onke ngandlela zonke. Akusethiwa kuyekele komnye nakomnye. All these are the efforts that have been demonstrated, and we have seen them in our visit in the provinces. Kakhulu ke ngoku in that province, the implementation of all the intergovernmental operations, all the interrelations, this has shown and also shown that it must be encouraged. These are the things we have learned. Working in the district and that province has demonstrated the working hard of all the officials. This has demonstrated that this government knows what it's doing. And therefore, as the ANC, we support this report because it says what has happened, what is to be done, and what we have learned. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Member Kapa. The motion is that the reports be adopted. Are there any objections? The motion is agreed to. Okay, Honorable Member Paulson. The motion is agreed to. The objection of the EFF will be registered. The Secretary will read the 13th order. Honorable Member, are you rising on a point of order? What rule? Well, in my case, I will apologize because it's an oversight. Indeed, I didn't press any button here. It's just an oversight. Please accept our apology and take your seat. Take your seat, please. Can you try? Is it on now? Yes. Thank you very much. Take your seat now. Take your seat. The Secretary will read the 13th order.
Consideration of report of Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs on oversight visit to Eastern Cape Province.
I now recognize the Honorable Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Sibonge sihlalo. Siyaqela ukuthi ke nalendlu ehloniphekile iyamukele le report. Siyabonga.
I call upon the chairperson. I started with recognizing the Chief Whip. My apology. Actually, the chairperson is supposed to introduce the report and then I call upon the... Yes, you'll come again. I now call upon Honorable Member D. Kumete to introduce the report.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson, honorable members of this august House. The oversight visit to the Eastern Cape took place under the able leadership of our chairperson, who unfortunately could not be with us for reasons beyond his control. The objectives of the committee were to check border management and control after getting reports that the Department of Home Affairs did not have good relationships with the community and with other stakeholders, which allegedly affected their effectiveness in the performance of their tasks. That was according to Mr. Sono, as well as reports that undocumented children were crossing the border daily to attend school in South Africa, which is against our present laws and arrangements, among others. That is among other objectives. We observed that the Department of Home Affairs had good relationships with communities in Sterkspruit and with the municipality, which was contrary to the reports given by Mr. Sono. The Department of Home Affairs does not have immigration inspectors, although it is near the border with Lesotho. That is, Sterkspruit is near the border with Lesotho. Although the offices of the Department of Home Affairs were closed by the Department of Labor in Sterkspruit, it took years for the Department of Public Works to help. Another finding was that some South African citizens were hiring out their identity documents in order for non-citizens to access services that are meant for South African citizens. Another one was that some Lesotho nationals were allegedly paying South African citizens to register children in order to access documentation like birth certificates. Another one was that people were crossing borders in sight of the SANDF and were apprehended apparently because the committee was there, but nothing was done as a consequence. School children as well from Lesotho commute daily to school in South Africa across the border. This was observed by the committee. There were some of the allegations and that were clearly in breach of the law, but there were no consequences, as I've said before. The committee therefore recommends, number one, that the Department of Home Affairs should deploy more immigration officers around that area, and immigration inspectors as well. Secondly, the Department of Public Works should expedite getting office space for the Department of Home Affairs. Three, the issue of fraudulent documents for foreign nationals should be dealt with by the Department of Home Affairs and the Stakeholders Forum, which includes the SANDF and the SAPS. Hospitals should include Department of Home Affairs in the discharge checklist. Amongst these are few reasons amongst many, but surely together, let's make South Africa safer. The government is on the right track. Yes, there are problems, but we are getting better.
The time is over,
every day.
Honourable Member.
Thank you.
I now recognize the Honourable Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Sibonge sihlalo. Sibonge kakhulu. Siphinde futhi sithi siyanxusa ukuthi lendlu ehloniphekile iyamukele le report yekomiti. Sibonga kakhulu. Ngokukhulu ukuhlonipha.
Thank you, Honourable Chief Whip. The motion is that the report be adopted. Are there any objections? Honourable Member.
No objections, but the DA would like to make a declaration, House Chair.
The DA would like to make a declaration. Honourable Fieglen, DA.
Thank you, House Chairperson. Oqala ufuna sithethe inyani indoba i-constitution asihambi ngayo. I-oversight ibinge-oversight ibingxaki ibikhona eNelspruit. Indoba siye ngovalwa kwe-office, i-officials ziyazi indoba i-office izavalwa 3 years ago. Thank you very much for the opportunity to give the feedback report of the 1st to the 4th August 2017 oversight trip to Eastern Cape. As we're nearing the end of 2017, it has been an interesting year in South Africa. We have been through a terrible year as a country with more exposures of corruption and plundering taking under the watch of the #ANC. I would like to take this moment to recognize Mama Helen Suzman, who laid the foundation in the apartheid era for a truly united, prosperous, and non-racial South Africa for all of us who live in it. Nethanda ningathandi usebenzile ke lo mama. Ebehamba kwezilokishi zethu. Firstly, let me state that it is our duty as Home Affairs Committee to do oversight and not wait for complaints from the communities. The other complainant was Mr. Sono, who complained, I think he sent emails from 2015 We only do oversight this year. The second issue, the oversight that we've done last year, the report was not even tabled. So, ngumnqake Public Health Service, also free schooling from the Eastern Cape government, was given to the Lesotho people. IDs were hired out for them to get the grant, the social grant from the South African. The oversight was also prompted by the closure of Home Affairs Office, which officials knew about 3 years ago, before Labour Department closed the office, for the safety of the citizens and workers. And then also the issue of provincial managers who are also acting on other posts. That is also another problem. The department was well aware of the closure of this office. Why has the department failed to make any arrangements for another accommodation in the department? And why Public Works doesn't assist the same departments under the same government? There is shortages of immigration inspectorate through the area in closer to the Lesotho border. There is a dire need for Department of Public Works and other departments such as Department of Home Affairs to work hand in hand, one government, to improve the situation. We have also acknowledged that the municipality from Sterkspruit is working closely with the Department of Home Affairs, though we want to say, mayingalala umqokozweni department, mayincedise xa kuthiwe banikezwa ispace, bakwazi into yoba babhatale irent. Enkosi kakhulu.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I will now call upon Honorable Member Paulson from the EFF.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, the oversight visit to the Eastern Cape showed the depth of rot and despair in this department, especially in border towns. Sterkspruit is close to Lesotho, and most people from Lesotho enter the country through that area. The level of corruption going on there is scary. Home Affairs officials exploit the desperation of our brothers and sisters from Lesotho who want to escape a life of misery in that country and make a new start in South Africa. Not only is the department facing the perennial problem of corruption there, it is also seriously understaffed, making it virtually impossible for the office there to be able to deal with the daily influx of people from Lesotho. But this points to a much bigger problem, that we should not, in essence, have these artificial borders that separate our people. There are people in Sterkspruit who have families in Lesotho and vice versa. We should, as much as possible, make it easier for people between these two countries to come and go as they please, without the stringent requirements normally associated with border control. We therefore reject this report. It offers no solutions to the problems faced by the people of Sterkspruit in as far as Home Affairs is concerned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member Paulson. I'll now call upon Honorable Member Singh from the IFP.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, once again, I was not on this oversight visit. But let me say that when I read the report and the recommendations in the report, one can also just as well apply and implement these recommendations in other parts of our country where there are border areas. But I think the common factor that Honorable Gumeta spoke about, that emerges once again in this parliament, is the scourge of corruption. Because it is a scourge of corruption that has led to people getting false identity documents or false papers that would entitle them to come into our country and vice versa. And unless we deal with the scourge of corruption in all government departments, then this is going to continue. But unfortunately, it starts at the top. They say a fish rots from the head. And if it's from there, then all the way down you get this scourge of corruption. So we've got to deal with the head of the fish, and we know who the head is. Now, having said that, Honorable Chairperson, we support the issue of, now I can't criticize the Chair, and I see, Honorable Chair, the Honorable Chief Whip of the majority party is being extra kind to you as a Chair, because you both come from Mpumalanga, so that's a good thing that he's doing. As far as mobile officers, we certainly need more mobile officers, because access to people from rural areas is certainly a problem when it comes to Home Affairs. But even those rural people, when they come to Home Affairs offices, you find them standing in long queues, having come there at 4 o'clock in the morning. The infrastructure is extremely poor, and these are areas where the Department of Home Affairs and Department of Public Works need to come together so that at least our people will have some confidence in the government of the day. Undocumented foreign nationals are a problem, but sometimes I wonder, Honorable Chairperson, when you walk through the streets of certain of our rural towns, how you get Bangladeshis, Pakistanis, Chinese, and all kinds of people just selling fruit and vegetable and other wares on the street. Now, what kind of skills are they bringing into our country? They are taking away the jobs of our own people who should be selling fruit and vegetable to these communities. So, and the only way they come into our countries without these skills is because of corruption. And that's the area that we need to look at. And I'm sure the Committee of Home Affairs is looking at this quite seriously. We would, finally, Honorable Chairperson, we are very pleased that the Director General Plenary is back. I'm sure it must have been very, very traumatic times for him, totally unnecessary, but at least the truth has prevailed, and we wish him well as he continues leading this department. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Mngabe, NFP.
Thank you, Chair. Let me also declare that I'm not serving in the committee. I'm presenting the report on behalf of Honorable Sheikh Imam, who's in Johannesburg. The Department of Home Affairs has the mandate to ensure that all people living and entering and leaving South Africa are properly documented. The NFP acknowledges that the execution of this mandate is challenging, particularly in areas away from urban centers. The oversight reported on here gives us a glimpse of these challenges. The report contains a comprehensive observation and very valid recommendations. In particular, we support the recommendation of the committee that the department should consider deploying more immigration inspectors in and around Stegspruit to deal with the proliferation of undocumented foreign nationals, as Honorable Singh have said. Chair, our social services are under severe strain because we do not have an accurate record of how many people to plan for. Undocumented foreign nationals are adding to this challenge, Honorable Mkongi. And effective control and record keeping will go a long way in assisting to plan for future social services. In addition to accurate documenting of foreign nationals, we also agree with the recommendations of the committee that this issue of fraudulent documents for foreign nationals should be dealt with swiftly, and those found to be responsible must be brought to account. It is a pity that officials whom we trust to uphold and implement the law are tempted by greed to betray that trust, and the NFP believes that they must be dealt with severely as an example and deterrent to other department officials who might be tempted to engage in such corrupt activities. Overall, Chair, the NFP believes that our people in rural areas should be afforded the same level of services as people living in urban areas. We see technological advances in the department, such as partnering with banks to provide a smart identity card to citizens. Yet such technological services are not available to our rural population. The NFP believes that increased use of mobile home affairs offices accompanied by increased capacity in information technology may well be a way of ensuring that rural people also have increased and seamless access, and we are encouraged to take note of the committee recommendation for the deployment of mobile offices to Stegspruit area, and we trust that similar recommendation will apply to other rural areas. We support the report. Thank you.
Thank you. ANC.
Honorable Chairperson, we, the African National Congress, support the report of Home Affairs tabled in this August House today. This declaration is to inform the members of Parliament about the oversight taken by the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs in Stegspruit and other surrounding areas such as Bensonville College, Aluan North, Bena Village, Beggersdorp, and Telebridge port of entry in the Eastern Cape from the 1st to the 4th of August 2017. The visit was undertaken due to complaints received from the communities and leaders within the communities, especially Mr. Sono, who is part of the traditional council. He wrote on many occasions on poor services that the communities received and undocumented people in the area. At this oversight meeting that was held, it was found that Mr. Sono did not follow any due processes of Home Affairs and also not working within legitimate structures within the communities. Notwithstanding the fact that communities do not always understand the processes of government, and therefore he assumed that engaging directly with the portfolio committee, he will escalate in resolving the crisis in the community. It was therefore resolved that Mr. Sono must refrain from coming to Home Affairs, but only to come and do his personal issues. Despite of several issues that were identified, we recommended the following: a closely working relationship between communities and Department of Home Affairs. Department of Home Affairs should deploy more immigration officials in and around Stegspruit and to deal with undocumented communities. Department of Home Affairs Stakeholders Forum should not be headed by political person holding political office. Honorable members, I just wanted to tell you that the Telebridge port of entry is very porous. So we are asking this August House to speed up the border management authority. We also said that the intergovernmental relationship and services must be brought closer to the communities, even those who live in the reaching rural areas, such as laboratory services from the Department of Health. We wish to extend our gratitude to Ekaya Lodge owner for the warm hospitality that he gave. This Ekaya Lodge, we are appealing those people who are doing oversight, they must support black-owned businesses. We must, like Mrs. Nomonde Lugaza, who is the owner of the Ekaya Lodge in Stegspruit. I think she needs a hand of applause because she's a black businesswoman having a lodge in Stegspruit. And we also want to extend the chef, Ms. Ntswaki Mokotu, who was preparing healthy food for us. We wish also to extend the government in the initiative in supporting small businesses. #support black women businesses. In conclusion, supporting this report, we acknowledge that more should and can still be done, and if we work together to create united, prosperous South Africa for our safety, security, most importantly, our peace. NC support the report. I thank you.
Thank you, honorable members. Order. The motion is that the report be adopted. Do you have any objections?
Please note the objection of EFF.
Thank you. The objection of the EFF will be noted and the report is thus agreed to. Now we come to motions without notice. Is there any member of the ANC who wish to give a motion without notice?
Thank you. Chairperson, the African National Congress moves without notice that the House congratulates Chair Leclos for being awarded the trophy for the best male athlete in Africa at a glittering evening honoring top sportsmen and women around the globe at the Association of National Olympics Gala Awards in Prague, in Czech Republic on Thursday, 2nd November 2017, recalls that Mr. Lee Klaus has been receiving gold medals throughout the year, including taking on rival US champ Tom Shields in the butterfly event at the Doha leg of the Final Swimming World Cup, where he won both the 50-meter and 200 meters events. Further recalls that the 2017 Final Short Course Swimming World Cup in Berlin, he also took gold in the 50-meter and 200-meter butterfly and silver in the men's 100-meter freestyle, recognizes and recommends his achievements and success globally and wishes him much success in his future endeavors. I so move.
Are there objections to the motions? No objection, agreed to. DA?
I hereby move on behalf of the DA that this House notes that Advocate Michael Donan SC represented many freedom fighters during the days of apartheid. Further notes that Advocate Michael Donan SC was highly successful in representing Major General Patani in 1987. Recalls that Major General Patani passed away in September 2017 and was buried last month on the 7th of October 2017. Further recalls that Major General Patani was arrested on charges of terrorism against the apartheid state and that the defense raised by Patani's advocate Michael Donan was a claim for prisoner of war status. Acknowledges that the prisoner of war defense was successful in that Patani was able to avoid the death sentence. Further acknowledges that Advocate Donan SC stepped in to represent another hero of the people's struggle for liberation from apartheid, namely Michael Lucas. Unfortunately, he was not able to avoid the ultimate sacrifice, but in so doing was able to save his comrades. 7, recognizes the outstanding contribution made by Advocate Donan to the rule of law. And 8, recognizes his excellent work in representing freedom fighters during a time in South Africa's history when representing freedom fighters was not only risky but also destructive to his practice, and congratulates Advocate Donan SC on this remarkable effort he put into representing freedom fighters for many years.
Thank you. Is there any objection to the motion? No objections, agreed to. EFF?
I hereby rise on behalf of the economic freedom fighters that the House note that tomorrow Bafana Bafana play the first of 2 must-win games against Senegal. Further note that the first of these games will be played in South Africa at Peter Mokaba Stadium in Polokwane. Acknowledges that if Bafana Bafana win both of these games, the national team will make its first appearance at the World Cup in 8 years. Further acknowledge that it is the national duty of every patriotic South African to support Bafana Bafana, either by watching them on TV or by going to the stadium. Note that this is one of the better Bafana teams in recent years and has the quality to win both of these games. Further, note the importance of supporting the national team as they are our representative on the global stage. Wish our soccer national team good luck and encourage all South Africans to attend the game and fill up Peter Mokaba Stadium. I thank you.
Thank you. Are there any objections? No objections, agreed to. Honorable members, I just want to acknowledge the presence of Advocate Michael Donan SC, who is here as our guest today in the gallery. Honorable, thank you very much. ANC?
Thank you, House Chair. The ANC moves without notice that the House welcomes the University of Cape Town's proposals to rename Jameson Hall as Sarah Bartman Memorial Hall, knows that Jameson Hall is named after Cecil John Rhodes' right-hand man, Leander Starr Jameson, after whom the infamous Jameson Raid is named. Recalls that in 1895, Jameson assembled a private army in an attempt to overthrow the Boer government, but was forced to surrender just short of Johannesburg. Believes that the motivation for choosing Sarah Bartman to replace the mercenary and perpetrator of colonial crimes was mainly to indicate MS Bartman's exploitation in the name of colonial science. Recalls that when she died in Paris, France, parts of her body had been dissected and her remains were displayed at the Museum of Men. And for more than a century, visitors could view Bartman's brain, skeleton, and genitals and plaster casts of her body. Further recalls that her remains were returned to South Africa in 2002, and she was buried in the Eastern Cape. May her soul rest in peace. Believes that her story needs to be repeatedly told because there are so many lessons one can learn from it, and fully supports the renaming of Jameson Hall to that of Sarah Bartman Memorial Hall.
Thank you. Your time is expired. Thank you very much. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections. Agreed to. IFP.
Thank you, Chairperson. On behalf of the IFP, I hereby move without notice that the House notes that the National Lilizela Tourism Awards 2017 was held at the Sandton Convention Center on the 28th of October. Further notes that KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga were among the provinces that clinched some of the night's biggest accolades. KZN winners were Azalea Bed and Breakfast in Howick, the Oyster Box Hotel for Best 5-Star Hotel, Inyati Game Lodge won Best Visitor Experience, Wildlife Encounters, while Kruger Park Lodge won for Best 4-Star Self-Catering Shared Vacation. Acknowledges that this year they launched the Hall of Fame Award that recognizes legends in the tourism sector, and the first inductee named was Esther Mahlangu, the legendary Ndebele artist and ambassador of South African tourism, who was recently honored with a mural in New York City. Congratulate all the winners and contenders at these awards, because winner or not, the business recognized by these awards are crucial for the success and growth of our tourism industry, which is extremely important for the growth of the economy of the country. And finally, urges government to continue to create an enabling environment for tourism to thrive and work with these key role players to make holiday travel more affordable, attractive, and accessible to our fellow South Africans. I so move. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections. Agreed to. NFP.
House Chairperson, on behalf of the National Freedom Party, I move without notice that this Honorable House takes note that a very dangerous new street drug, commonly known as flagger, has surfaced in Durban. Also knows that the use of this synthetic drug often leads to paranoia and delirium, resulting in users behaving like zombies and endangering their lives and that of others. Further notes that flagger is considered to be 10 times stronger than cocaine, but much cheaper. Finally notes that flagger is associated with mental disturbances, and this makes treatment far more challenging and costly than other drugs. Wherefore, we call upon this Honorable House to call on the South African Police Services and other law enforcement agencies to make every effort possible to keep this dangerous drug off our streets, and to encourage the eThekwini municipality and NGO to join forces and roll out an information campaign to warn the people of Durban about the devastating dangers of flag. I so move.
Thank you. Are there any objections to the motion? No objections. Agreed to. ANC.
The African National Congress moves without notice that the House congratulates the Pretoria-born chef Chantel Datnall for recently being crowned the world's best female chef at the prestigious international awards in Warsaw, in Poland. Notes that she faced strong competition from globally acclaimed chefs, including Spain's Elna Azak, the 2016 winner. Recalls that Datnall has twice been named South Africa's Chef of the Year. Further recalls that she was also placed number 32 in the Best Chef Awards Top 100 list for 2017. The highest position woman and one of the only 3 to make the top 50, recognizes that she was also the only South African chef listed in the top 100. Commends her for flying the South African flag high in the international arena and wishes her the best in her future endeavors. I so move.
Thank you. Is daar enige bezwaar tegen die motie? Geen. Die motie is daarvoor ondersteun. Dankie. UDM.
I move without notice on behalf of the United Democratic Movement that the House notes that previously disadvantaged women who work for upper class people as domestic workers are still subjected to ill treatment, notwithstanding the entrenched statutes that protect employees from exploitation and violation of their rights. Appalled by a 45-year-old Gauteng man who allegedly raped a woman who worked for him as a domestic worker, commends this woman for coming out and reporting the molestation of this cruel man. Believing that such cases of rape and ill treatment are still prevalent in domestic workers, we call on the government of South Africa, the justice system to severely punish such inhumane behavior in order to deter other employees from molesting, sexually abusing, and exploiting vulnerable employees. Further calls on the Department of Women and Department of Labor to come up with measures to eradicate such acts and protect the rights of women and employees through safe mechanism. I so move.
Ra leboga. Go na le ba ba phirišanago le motion. A ba gona motion e o tla tšwela pele. FF plus. DA.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House notes with deep concern the attack this week on the Speaker of the Kanaland Municipal Council by a member of the ICOSA opposition during an official council meeting. Further notes that apart from the appalling abuse and threats she had to endure, a jug of water was thrown directly at her. Acknowledges that violence, especially violence against women, has reached unacceptable levels in South Africa and seems to be spiraling out of control. Further acknowledges that a certain standard of behavior is expected from local councillors and that a certain decorum must be upheld in the interest of democracy and common human decency. Calls on the police in the town of Ladysmith and legal processes to deal with this level of thuggery in the strongest possible way. Expresses its deepest abhorrence of the manner in which progressive local governance is being compromised to the detriment of service delivery, condemns this act in the strongest possible terms, and wishes Speaker Tron, as she continues to lead a council that is working hard to transcend political differences to become real agents of change by improving lives and making a difference. I so move.
Thank you. Any objections to the motion? No objection. Agreed to EFF?
Thanks, Chairperson. I rise on behalf of the economic freedom fighters that the House note that 23 years ago, this Parliament passed the Restitution of Land Act, allowing South African forcibly removed from land since 1913 to lodge claims for the return of their land. Further note that while this act only deals with land stolen in the last 104 years, there has been no concrete progress in land restitution. Acknowledge that 23 years later, white South Africans still own over 67% of commercial farmland in South Africa, reaping profit from this land in the billions of rands, while the people whose land they still live in poverty and are reliant on grants to support themselves. Further acknowledge that the lack of transformation in land ownership shows the failure of this act to address the land disposition. Note that this act has passed its expiry date and a new approach to land restitution is needed. Further note that the most viable way forward is simple expropriation of land without compensation. I so move.
Reboleboa, is there any objection to the motion?
Chair, the DA objects. Thanks.
There is an objection by the DA. The motion will now be converted into a notice of a motion. ANC.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson of the House. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House welcomes the appointment of the following High Court judges on Thursday, the 2nd of November, 2017. Justice Selby Mfanele Mbeneke, Ndumiso Patrick Jali Mbulelo, Stanford Jolana, Advocate Philip Jacobus Lobster, SC, Advocate Norman Davis, SC, Malizati Betty Mahalelo, Advocate Tintswalo Anna Nana Makubele, SC, Kasim Mohammed Sardiwala, Advocate David Utenholter, SC, Advocate Cornelius Jacobus van der Westhuizen, Taswell Deverell Papir, Mushtaq Kasim Parker, Advocate Mark Louis Shea, SC, Edward Derek Viller. They have been appointed in accordance with Section 174, 6 of the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa, 1996, and on the advice of the Judicial Service Commission. Believes that their appointments will assist in strengthening South Africa's justice system, trust with confidence that they will carry out their responsibilities with diligence and prudence as required, and wishes them well in their new positions of responsibility. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is daar enige bezwaar teen die motie? Geen bezwaar daarvoor, die motie is ondersteund. Dank u. Koop? Koop? SCDP? ANC?
Chairperson, the African National Congress moved without notice that the House notes with sadness the killing of 23 people and 11 wounded by the suicide car bomb which exploded outside the popular hotel in Somalia capital on Saturday, 28 October 2017. Further notes that some of the deaths were caused by the second blast which occurred in the area minutes later, as well as the gunfire within the hotel. Commends the security forces of Somalia for their intervention in ending a night-long siege at the Mogadishu hotel and stormed the building, killing 3 attackers and capturing 2 alive. Recalls that this massacre happens just a few weeks after a twin truck bombs which killed more than 270 people and injured hundreds. Mogadishu believes that terrorism is not a solution to solve politically, economically, social, nor religious issues. Calls on the African Union to find ways to deal with increasing acts of terrorism that seem to engulf Africa, convey its condolences to the families of the deceased and the government of Somalia, and wishes those that are injured a speedy recovery. I so move.
Thank you. Is there anyone who objects to the motion? No, and the motion is agreed to. AIC? Nihirni. Ahang SA? ANC?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson of the House. the African National Congress moves without notice that the House knows the death of 10 people following the ambush of vehicle that lost control and crashed into an oncoming vehicle believed to be carrying teachers and pupils. Understands that this incident happened near Ladysmith on Tuesday, 31st of October 2017. Believes that the car that was ambushed was carrying the official of the Klip River Taxi Association, his daughter, 2 bodyguards, and a driver. Further believes that the taxi conflict over routes is believed to have sparked the shooting. Understands that all 5 people in the buggy have died and 5 other people who were traveling in a combi also died, whilst those seriously injured were rushed to the hospital. Condemns the use of violence in solving differences in the taxi industry, supports the police investigation on the matter, and calls for speedy apprehension of those behind this tragedy, and conveys condolences to the deceased families and wishes those injured a speedy recovery. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Is there any objection to the motion? No objection, agreed to. APC? PAC? DA?
Thank you, Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that this House knows that a drought relief convoy of 31 trucks arrived in the drought-stricken town of Beaufort West in the Western Cape yesterday. Acknowledges that the Neerhoven Budgetary and Hendrik van Wyk Vervoer managed to donate and transport 1,500 bales in 31 truckloads of valuable feed to farmers in the Western Cape. Also acknowledge that the Western Cape is currently in the midst of one of the worst droughts in decades. Further acknowledges that the feed will be distributed from today to various areas in the Central Karoo in places such as Laingsburg, Prince Albert, Merweville. Thanks Agri-SA for their continued involvement in assisting farmers and farming communities. Thanks to Yanni Nievenhoff and his family for their incredible, generous, and much-needed donation that will go a long way in supporting farming communities of the Central Karoo during this very difficult time. I so move.
Thank you. Bakhona abaphikisana nombiko? Abekho umbiko uyamukele.
Chairperson, we object to that motion.
Oh, the EFF object to the motion. The motion will be converted to a notice of a motion. ANC?
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. The African National Congress moves without notice that the House knows that World Science Day for Peace and Development is annually celebrated on the 10th of November to highlight the important role that science has in society. Further knows that it also underlines the importance and relevance of science in our daily lives. Understands that by linking science more closely with society, World Science Day for Peace and Development aims to ensure that citizens are kept informed of developments in science. Recalls that the day offers the opportunity to mobilize all actors around the topic of science for peace and development, from government officials to the media and to school pupils. Remembers that science, since its proclamation by UNESCO in 2001, World Science Day for Peace and Development has generated many concrete projects, programs, and funding for science around the world. Welcomes this year's theme as Science for Global Understanding and calls upon governments to use this day to publicly affirm their commitment to increase support for scientific initiatives that help society. I thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you. Any objection to the motion? No objection, agreed to. Thank you. I am informed that members on my left-hand side, some members are taking photos in the House. Please, according to Rule 64D, that is not allowed. Can we not do that. Thank you. That concludes motions without notice. The next item on the order paper is member statements. Honorable Malchas from the ANC, will you please read your motion?
Thanks.
Your statement.
Thanks, Deputy Chairperson. The African National Congress welcomes a guilty verdict handed down to J. Panahotti's killer, husband Christopher Panahottu, and 2 co-accused. The ANC condemns in the strongest terms the rampant and endemic surge in intimate partner killings. These deplorable violent acts against women have reached alarming and intolerable levels. Every week, South Africa is confronted by the assault and gruesome killing of women, either by their intimate partners, relatives, or strangers. Having been found guilty by Judge Dylan Chetty on the charge of murder, we believe that the reason for a harsh sentence to be handed down to Christopher Panahottu and his co-accused on the 17th November 2013. This will set a precedent to all partners who remain hell-bent on threatening women and their intimate families daily, violating even court orders, interdicting them against gender violence. We commend the police, prosecutorial team, and the judge for the sterling work done in ensuring the justice is served. The ANC calls on all sectors of society to unite against
Unfortunately,
all
your
forms
time
of
has expired. Thank you,
abuses
Honourable
against
Member.
women and children.
DA?
Last week, the latest quarterly labour force survey revealed that 9.4 million are now unemployed in our country. This means that 118,000 more South Africans are now unemployed than in the previous quarter. The Democratic Alliance strongly condemns the Department of Labour for overseeing this massive loss of employment. Youth unemployment has become an epidemic where millions of young people struggle to find any job whatsoever, while our government stands idly by. It is clear that youth unemployment has become a national crisis, which needs urgent intervention, and yet there's clearly no political will to improve the living conditions of our youth. These unacceptably high numbers of unemployment are set to continue to skyrocket as South Africa continues to weaken under the rule of the ANC. While our country is in need of leadership that will encourage economic growth and job creation, our government continues to jump from one scandal to the next. It has become clear that the government does not have any plan whatsoever to address unemployment and create jobs. When the DA comes into government, you will see that these unemployed numbers significantly will lower, as our focus will be on elevating the people and not self-enrichment and putting money into the hands of the politically connected elite. Thank you.
Thank you. EFF?
Thank you, Chair. The EFF notes the announcement by the Minister of Finance of the establishment of an inquiry into the tax administration and governance of the South African Revenue Services. The announcement correctly points out the concerning tax revenue under collection and trend that has been persistent in the past few years. However, the minister incorrectly attributes the under collection of revenue due to poor economic cycle. And there is no mention of tax avoidance and illicit financial flows as the main and most likely factor driving lower revenue collection. The EFF has in the past written to the Davis Tax Commission, Committee, SARS, and previous ministers of finance to make concrete proposals on dealing with tax gaps as a result of aggressive tax avoidance and illicit financial flows. Amongst principal recommendation was the establishment of a judicial commission of inquiry in terms of section 84(2)(f) of the Constitution in terms of the President's responsibilities to investigate thoroughly aggressive tax avoidance and illicit financial flows, and its impact in government's ability to raise maximum tax revenue to be able to deliver services. Terms of the Commission of Inquiry to be established must include examination of tax avoidance, base erosion, and illicit financial flows. Thank you.
ANC, Honorable Mjobo.
Honorable Chair, I'm not Honorable Mjobo, I'm Honorable Madlopa.
Replacing Honorable Mjobo is fine.
The expanded public works program, an ANC government initiative aimed at reducing poverty and unemployment through the provision of training and short-term, medium-term intensive work opportunities to the poor and unemployed South Africans. We have witnessed a significant stride in addressing poverty alleviation and job creation. Therefore, the African National Congress viewed the increase of the minimum wage for expanded public works program participants from 83.59 to 88 rand per day or per task in line with the current inflation rates, which came into effect on the 1st of November 2017 as a positive step, and it is significantly boost the socio-economic conditions of the EPWP participants. The ANC believes that the expanded public works programs continues to play a significant role in uplifting the lives of EPWP participants and communities through the creation of work opportunities and providing much needed services under the EPWP sectors such as infrastructure, non-state environmental and culture sector, as well as the social sectors. The impact is noticeable through the assets created by and skills provided to the participants. I thank you.
Thank you. IFP.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. Honorable Chairperson, it's a matter of growing concern that some, or if not all, financial institutions, and mainly the banks, do not adequately protect the interests of clients whose accounts have been debited when the client himself or herself has not given the authority to do so. Cases in point, and there are not many members in the House for me to ask how many of you have fallen victims, unfortunately. But, you know, there are victims where your account gets a debit of 99 Rand, and unless you look at your account, which is something I don't do very often, you find that these debits go through. And when you call the financial institutions, they will give you the number of the person who debited your account. You call those numbers and you don't get anybody who answers those calls. Now, I think it is a responsibility of the financial institutions and the responsibility of the Minister of Finance and the Banking Association to intervene in this regard. Because some of us may be able to afford 24.99 rands, but there are many who cannot afford the 24 times 99 rand. And when you go to a bank and ask them to reverse these entries, it becomes quite a mission. So I think it's a serious problem facing not only us members of the House, but facing South Africans as a whole, that you get these hoax businesses that operate from offices and debit people's account unknowingly and unwittingly. And I hope that this government takes this matter seriously and intervenes in this regard. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. You should have asked me. I'm the victim. UDM?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. We still wish the class of 2017 energy and determination to succeed. The World Economic Forum has a dim assessment report about the quality of our basic education as compared to other developing nations in the continent and world over. They record that our science and mathematics performance is dismal. Africa Check ranks South Africa behind poorer countries like Kenya, Swaziland, Tanzania, and Zimbabwe on literacy and numeracy. Yet our annual expenditure is far greater than them. These reports should trigger a sense of urgency to reform our education system for all. Even though education opportunities are open to all citizens, quality education remains a privilege for the wealthy. The poor and vulnerable remain disenfranchised and on the fringes of development. This approach limits the scope from which the country can rely on for the production and molding of our future leaders. TVET colleges are also not doing well. These colleges are receiving reasonable subsidies from government, but they still fail to meet the immediate demands of labor market. Students are not equipped with practical technical training. At university level, we are experiencing disturbing reports of dropouts. This means more than 80% take longer, and some do not finish their degrees. Speaker, South Africa needs a qualitative and accessible education system that is responsive to its political, social, and economic challenges. I thank you.
Thank you. ANC, Tatana Mabas.
1 billion rands yi averiwa nkwama wa SMME lowuntshwa. ANC yi tshemba leswaku ku kula ka mabindzu lamatsongo na ti-cooperatives i nhlana wa ku pima ku kurisiwa ka vanhu, ku tshinetiwa ka vanhu eka ikonomi na ku kurisa makulele ya ku angarhela ya ku aka social economy hi ku kucetela social solidarity, hi ku aka mitirho yo tala, hi hoyozela matiyimisele ya mfumo wa ANC wa ku nyiketana hi 1 billion eka xikhwama xa mali xo kongoma mabindzu lamatsongo. Leswi swi ta kucetela ku kurisiwa ka mabindzu lamatsongo ngopfungopfu emalokixini. This allocation of 1 billion to the newly announced fund for the small and medium enterprises, together with the ANC government national informal business upliftment strategy designed to assist township enterprises to upgrade their businesses' activities, are necessary instruments to scale up, support, and expand the number and viability of cooperatives and small businesses to achieve our development vision. The ANC government is implementing key elements of this strategy to boost township enterprises, increase their involvement in the economy, as well as to expand opportunities for the township enterprises.
APC.
Thank you, House Chair. The African People's Convention, the Revolutionary Party, has been consistent in its rejection of the status quo, where communities with mines live in abject poverty in underdeveloped places, whilst the wealth underneath their lands is mined 24 hours non-stop, cuttered away to make a few people filthy rich. The APC says no to this. Communities have always said no, but with no one listening. We hear that the Chamber of Mines has taken government to court over the revised mining charter, in large measure because there was no consultation. The APC question is, do mining companies consult communities? Do mining companies care about communities? If lack of consultation is reason enough for the Chamber of Mines to go to court, what is the recourse of communities trampled on by mining companies? The APC has news for the Chamber of Mines. The African people have no other cheek to turn. They are asserting themselves, their dignity, their humanity. They hate the mining companies for their neglect, exploitation, pollution, and treachery. To the APC, the centrality of the people in the mining charter is glaringly absent. Our people deserve more than just the SLPs, which are not implemented by the mines. Thank you.
Inkom. ANC, Honorable Adams.
The ANC welcomes the initiative of tourism monitors to keep townships safe. The ANC views tourism as a significant and critical sector in South Africa's economy as it contributes to trade, sustains 700,000 direct jobs, and is performing stronger than the other growth sectors. Thus, the ANC welcomes the initiative of the Department of Tourism's efforts to ensure that tourists visiting the country are safe and have access to information while enjoying their experiences in South Africa. The department recently launched the pilot program in Gauteng, which places youth aged between 18 and 35 in tourism hubs like Vilakazi Street in Orlando, Soweto, where they will ensure the safety of tourists. The monitors will be linked to law enforcement agencies to allow seamless flow of information and engagement. This program is part of the ANC government's effort to fulfill the National Development Plan's mandate, which identified the tourism sector as a key growing sector in the economy. The program will also be rolled out to other provinces. I thank you.
Baie dankie. GA?
Thank you, Chairperson. The 11th of November is Remembrance Day, commemorated around the world in memory of all those who've died in conflicts serving their country. Remembrance Day has its origins as a memorial to those who perished in the First World War. Its symbol of remembrance, the poppy, comes from those that grew in the First World War battlefields of Flanders and Belgium, and is a poignant reminder of the terrible loss of life that occurred there. The significance of choosing the 11th of November as the date of the memorial is that this was the date that the First World War came to an end at 11 a.m. on the 11th of November 1918. Subsequent to this, further significant conflicts have taken place across the world, and this day now commemorates all those who've died in service of their country. South Africans of all races have played a prominent role in many of these conflicts. In the news recently has been the recognition of the role played by black South African troops in the First World War, and particularly the 646 troops who perished during the sinking of the SAS Mendi on the 21st of February 1917 in the English Channel. In memory of their sacrifice, the South African Navy has named the last of its 4 Valor-class frigates the SAS Mendi when it entered service in March 2007. Hundreds of thousands of South Africans have taken part in these many conflicts over the past century, many sacrificing their lives. These include not only those who died in the major world wars, but also in our most recent liberation struggle, when soldiers from both the former SADF and MK died. The words of the poem for the fallen commemorate their sacrifice.
Unfortunately, your time has expired. Thank you. EFF?
Ngibonga isihlalo lapho ngaphambili. Ngisukuma egameni le-EFF ukuphakamisa lokhu. CFF kudala sithi abantu abanikwe umhlaba wabo. Nina ANC ningayigqizi qakala leyo nto. Kuyimanje lapha ya eThekwini kunabantu abadlala ngabantu babathembisa ukubabuyisela umhlaba wase Newland East. Laba bantu babakhokhisa izimali engango 150 njalo ngenyanga. Ihholo lakhona mawuzongena kunemali futhi oyikhokhayo. Okubuhlungu ukuthi lamaholo akamasipala. Kulabantu abadlala ngomphakathi khona ngisho nabesifazana njengomama uMamkhize. Lolu daba sengathi lungasukunyelwa ngokusheshsha ngoba kuningi okungatholakali lapha ya. Labantu bayashintshana ngokuthi kuyimanje sekukhona omunye ubaba okhona ongumpongose. Lolu daba ludala imihlangano ibanjelwa lapha ya kulamaholo. Lamaholo kubanjelwa khona ikaBesta lapha eNanda, phinde kube kaL kwaMashu. Esicela lana kuminister umhlonishwa uNkwinti ukuthi akasichazele ukuthi ngabe uyabazi indaba abantu. Okunye kusiphatha kambi yilento yokukhokhiswa kwabantu amaholo ngoba amaholo akamasipala and nale mali okungena ngaphakathi ukukhokha o20 cash.
Siyabonga ma.
And bengicela kancane njoba nawe mhlawumbe kusuka bonke abantu baye lapha yana. Siyabonga.
ANC Honorable DV Mguni.
Thank you, House Chair. The ANC is committed in the provision of community library in every municipal ward in South Africa. This is attested by the recent opening of the state-of-the-art Zitabiseng Public Primary in Mpumalanga province, fulfilling the 2014 manifesto assertion. The Zitabiseng Public Library boasts the following: a study area, a media room for watching education materials, a play area for children, for storytelling and play activities, a computer room with internet and Wi-Fi access. This library will service 6 high schools, 8 primary schools, and 10 pre-primary schools within the Bomadu community. which is made of 3 wards. The ANC commenced the setting aside of 30 million rands for the building of the new libraries by the province, with 10 million rand budgeted for the upgrading of the 2 libraries in Mashishing and Standerton. The ANC also believes that the speeding up of the provision of libraries and their resources will assist greatly in the literacy drive. I thank you very much.
Sithokoze. PAC? Not here. ANC, PJ?
Hello.
Mbuni?
Hello, I'm here. Thanks, Chair. Chairperson of the session, as the PAC, will remain deeply concerned with the ongoing victimization of students, leaders in institutions of higher learning, with other vice-chancellors behaving like these institutions belong to them. As a nation, we can't allow the victimization of our future leaders. The education that our student leaders are fighting for is for their own development and growth. As the PAC, we call upon the Department of Higher Education and Training, its minister and university managers in general to understand the call for free education as a societal issue that we as a nation must collectively work together to realize for the betterment of the majority of our impoverished people in moving forward. Our student vanguard, the PASMA, as a leading force has been identified as a threat wherever it confronts university managers. Its leaders are being expelled, harassed, arrested, and some are even prevented from writing exams. And there are also cooked charges. And as a PAC, we take very strong exception like that. And this problem is taking place more especially upper Western Cape. Thank you.
Chebe, mhlonishwa Mbinda, kade singakuboni sengathi awukho. Chebe. ANC, Honorable PJ.
Thank you, House Chair. House Chair, November 8 marks a very special centenary, marking the events of the Great October Socialist Revolution in Russia in 1917. One which is of crucial significance in respect of the struggles against the devastation brought about by imperialism and its catastrophic interventions. The decree on peace written by Vladimir Lenin was passed by the Second Congress of the Soviet of Workers, Soldiers, and Peasants Deputies on the 8th November 1917, following the success of the October Revolution itself. So fundamental was the ending of the inter-imperialist First World War to the future of the peoples of Russia and the peoples of the belligerent countries that it was articulated as the first priority of the first workers' state within the first 24 hours of its existence. The decree described continuation of the imperialist war, First World War, motivated by the issue of division of conquered territories between the richest and most powerful countries as the, quote, the greatest crimes against humanity, close quote. For the first time in the history of the world, the will of the workers, soldiers, and peasants with state power in their hands was being expressed in respect of the resolution of conflict and the rights of peoples. And therefore, lastly, the Soviet Union, which was established as a direct state outcome of the Great October Socialist Revolution, contributed immensely to our struggle for liberation and social emancipation as
Your
South
time
Africa.
has expired.
Thank you.
Thank you. GA.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. The Democratic Alliance supports land reform. We believe that South Africans who lost their land due to the discriminatory laws of the past must have it returned. We argue that landowners are to be assisted via agricultural mentorship programs and skills training so that restituted land can be used to its fullest potential. What we will not tolerate is the blatant corruption by departmental officials mandated to assist beneficiaries of CPAs. This, as discovered on a recent parliamentary committee visit to Mpumalanga, which left DA parliamentarians disgusted at the blatant corruption being committed by state officials, and this to the detriment of the poor, uneducated South Africans who rely on the state for guidance and support. The testimonies heard by the committee implicate officials and even an ex-district mayor of fraudulent land activities gangster-like tactics that are deployed to silence complainants. Mpumalanga is in such a disarray that there was a claim that had been finalized by the state, but when the claimants were to move on to the property, they found that the state had purchased the incorrect property. There are still approximately 7,000 claims prior to 1998 that need to be finalized, and 130,000 outstanding claims in total. Now we know exactly why this is. Thank you.
Thank you. ANC Akhbaralit, Madela.
Thank you, Chairperson. The ANC welcomes the handing over of a 50 million rand state-of-the-art fire station to serve the community of Tokoza and Katlehong on Friday, the 3rd of November 2017. This new fire station replaces the old, smaller structure which had only 3 fire engines and 3 ambulances. This new upgraded fire station is fully equipped with a new water tanker, a major pumper, rescue pumper, medium pumper, and 4 ambulances. There are now in total 5 fire engines. The fire station was constructed over a 2-year period. It provided employment opportunities for 66 local workers and 6 local subcontractors. The ANC is of the view that this new structure will enable the fire station to respond quicker to emergencies and cover a wider area, as well as responding to the high risk of road industrial area, which has potentially flammable petrol depots in the vicinity. The fire station also runs community awareness training programs to empower citizens on dealing with emergencies and practical steps to take in case of fire. This is service delivery in its best, and indeed a good story to tell. Thank you.
Stogoze. That concludes member statements. Do we have any ministerial responses? Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, I want to start off by responding to the statement from the DA on the employment statistics, and simply to say that we remain deeply concerned at the high levels of unemployment. But having said that, it's also important that we drill down a little bit and look at the figures in more detail. And if we look at the year-on-year employment figures, the latest ones, they'll tell us that there were 358,000 jobs that were created during the last year, but that there were 696,000 new entrants into the labor force. And what this means is it means that we are growing jobs indeed, but at a rate and pace which is actually too little. The growth is too flaccid in order to be able to absorb the increase in labor force. But it actually is worth drilling down even a little more, because if we look at the provincial breakdown, we'll see that in the quarter 2 to quarter 3, there was job growth in 6 provinces, and there was job contraction in 3. One of the 3 where there were net job losses was the Western Cape, which suggests that the correlation between the DA governing and job creation, which the honourable member spoke of, is simply not true. Then let me just comment on the statement by the Honourable Singh, and to say, like you, Chair, I'm indeed a victim personally of that. Last Tuesday, 2 days ago, there was a debate I participated in the NCOP on unlawful deductions by credit providers. And I think that the issue is broader than the one he's talking about. The issue is also that low-income people are having debit orders deducted for debts, even though there are regulations in place that says this cannot be more than 25% of your salary. And there are all sorts of other schemes and scams that are in place. We indicated that the National Credit Regulator is taking steps within its area of jurisdiction, but on some of these other matters, I said, I undertook, and I'll repeat it here, that we will engage with the Minister of Finance about the role that the Market Conduct Regulator can play to try to tighten up on illegal deductions that have been taken from people's accounts. What happens is sometimes as well, when the transaction is reversed, they charge you for that as well. That shouldn't happen.
Thank you. Thank you, Honourable Minister Davis. Minister Nkwinti.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Honourable Chair, there's this matter which is referred to the Minister of Finance here about the commission by the Honourable Mente. I think she's right. I agree generally with her. But the Commission should be given a chance to do its work, and then we look at what outcomes it presents to the nation, and then we can critique it. The second thing is the Honorable Mamaso on the co-ops. This is very important because I think I've said before that we've got more than 17,000, almost 20,000 youngsters in the NARASEC. In fact, today, 870 are graduating at the Trisai in Kimberley. I should have been there today. These are young people from the rural areas. These are the youngsters. We've created a company for them and a cooperative for them. They are going to register that into a cooperative bank. We budgeted 1 million for them for this year. Same with women. They've already established their own company and their headquarters in Utrecht. These are rural people. We do that. Lastly, Honorable Chair, yes, Mamukaula, we injalo lento. Siyibonile lento yenzeka KwaZulu-Natal. Yokurobha abantu abadala, abantu baye kubo. Bengaphangeleli thina singuhulumende. Bayobaqhatha abantu ukuba bathathe imali yabo besithi izawukhawuleza iclaim yabo. Kudala isenzeka abanye siyababamba siba secourt bagwetywe. Nale into siyayiphanda ngoba ubheka imbili phaya uye wathetha selethethile futhi nase TV ezama ukubonakalisa ukuthi abantu balumke yilento. Abantu sicela amalungu eParliament. Amalungu eParliament mawancedise abantu. It's no use members of Parliament complaining when you have the power to assist people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable
House
Deputy
Chairperson.
Minister Chohan.
House Chairperson, may I address you in terms of Rule 132, please? House Chairperson, we have ministers here so that they can account to member statements. Now, Minister Nkwinti spoke about every single member statement except the one that was raised about his own department. Is there a reason for that? Is he not wanting to account to this House for corruption in his department? Or is he putting his head in the sand to avoid being accountable?
Honorable Steenhuisen, you know very well that I can respond to that. You know very well. Honorable Deputy Minister Chohan. Oh.
Sorry, Sihlalo.
Yeah, Mama. Okay, Honorable
Oh, yeah.
Deputy Minister, can you take your seat? What? Yini ma?
Ngiyabonga uminister. But kodwa angizwa le ndaba yokuthi lama umasipala waseThekwini ubavumela kanjani laba bantu bazorobha abantu bakhokhe imali khona na ewucash ungekho ngisho receipt.
Ngiyabonga ma ngicela ukuthi uminister uza kukhulumisa. Ngiyabonga ma. Hayi angathinti lutho ungathi ngicimile mina. Deputy Minister Chohan.
Thank you, Chairperson. I rise in response to the statement against violence against women and children by the Honourable Malchas. Deputy Chairperson, one of the great suffragists was quoted as saying that there has never been a successful society because at its very source, the fountain of nurturing is poisoned by violence and sexism. And this is really the effect of violence against women and children, is that it robs us of a peaceful future. I really want us to agree wholeheartedly that this is a scourge of our society as a whole, and that the solution to this poison cannot be found in the criminal justice system alone. It is a whole of society problem and requires a whole of society approach. We cannot, all of us, regardless of our ideological backgrounds, be in this house if we don't have a single ambition, and that is to create a future society at peace with itself. And let's start with violence against women and children. Just in regard to the Honourable Singh, I do agree with both him and Minister Davis in regard to the call that there should be more accountability and responsibility for unauthorized debits against bank accounts. But as Home Affairs, we've often found that many of us are also guilty of not protecting our personal information sufficiently. We often share our ID numbers when it comes to loyalty programs in return for small discounts at retailers, etc., being not very aware of the fact that the information that we're sharing is worth much more than the 10% or 5% that we're going to get as a discount.
Thank you very much. Your time has expired, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you.
Minister Mbalula.
Honorable Chairperson, I'm rising on Rule 132.5. The Chief Whip of the Opposition said that the Minister of Rural Development does not want to be accountable. But when you look at Rule 132.5, it's very clear that he can only respond up to 2 minutes for a particular statement. So he must
Honorable
be given another
member, I
chance.
think I ruled on that one, and it says long past. Please, please. Honorable Minister Mbalula.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I just want to agree with the honorable members with regard to the Panayotis case, that indeed if in the value chain of criminal justice system, the prosecution together with the investigators work properly and single-minded, there are many of such instances where justice is served. And we want to congratulate and salute the efforts of our law enforcement agencies to ensure that people like this are successfully prosecuted and brought to book. And between ourselves, the South African Police Department and the Ministry, together with the Ministry of Justice and Correctional Service, we are undertaking a mission in which we address concerns of our communities to strengthen the criminal justice value chain by convening a joint interaction between the police and prosecutors together with the NDPP to strengthen successful prosecution in the Republic. On on violence against women, we have implemented our 6-point plan. If you go to our police stations throughout the country, you will see there that there is a clear response from our police stations in terms of the implementation of the 6-point plan, that no woman must be returned from the police station, and that all victims who come to report the crime of violence and abuse in our police station must be taken as genuine. And we create an environment within our police stations for victim-friendly rooms so that we're able to deal with the matter adequately. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That, honorable members, concludes ministerial responses. We now on the last item on the order paper, which is notice of a motion. Honorable Malchus, would you like to move a motion, a notice of a motion?
Thank you, Deputy Chairperson. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates development of strict road safety measures to lessen road carnage, especially during holiday seasons. I thank you.
Thank you. The DA?
Thank you, Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, the House debate Department of Military Veterans Healthcare System, which undermines the health of our military veterans. Thank you.
Thank you. EFF?
Thanks, Chair. I hereby rise on behalf of the EFF that in its next sitting, the House debate, the Paradise Papers leaks. This is the exposure of the wealth-rich business people, head of states and politicians' secret ways of making huge wealth through tax abuse. I so move.
Thank you. ANC, Mama Dloba? Your mic, please. Check the other one because the recording needs to be heard.
Honorable House Chair, thank you. I move on behalf of the African National Congress that in its next sitting, the House debates ways to create more reliable and affordable public transport system, and better coordination between various modes of transport. I thank you.
Thank you. IFP.
Ngiyathokoza sihlalo on behalf of the Inkatha Freedom Party. I shall move the next of this House that the House debates the recent report by the Auditor General that wasteful and irregular expenditure of public funds rose by 55% for the 2016-2017 financial year. Ngiyathokoza.
Sithokoze. NFP.
Thank you, House Chair. I move on behalf of the NFP that this House in its next sitting debates the treatment of senior citizens in Home Affairs offices whenever they visit these offices to apply for various documentation. I so move.
Thank you. ANC. Tatana Mabas.
Hi ku yimela vandla ra ANC ndzi susumeta leswaku huvo yi jekajekisana hi ti-incentives na ti-programs to tshineta mitirho na vuvekisi emalokixini yo tala lama ya nga ekusuhani na madoroba. Nda susumeta.
Cancer. UDM.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the United Democratic Movement that the House at its next sitting debates the role that the private sector can and must play in trying to employ and build the capacity of graduates in our country, as well as fund programs that directly and positively impact on the current education system. I so move.
Thank you. FF Plus. Nihirni. DA.
Thank you, House Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates South Africa's commitment and transition to a lower carbon economy. I so move.
Thank you. EFF.
I hereby rise on behalf of the EFF that in the next sitting, the House debate the increase in the deaths of mine workers throughout the country. This is in light of the report by the Chamber of Mines report on Monday this week that a total of 76 mine workers have been killed in 2017 thus far, compared to 73 workers killed in 2016. I so move.
Thank you. ANC, Mam Adams.
Thank you. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates create incentives that encourage a culture of individual saving for risk and loss of income due to old age, illness, injury, or loss of work for workers in both the formal and informal sectors. Thank you.
Sithokoze ma. COPE ayikho. ACGP ayikho. ANC DV. Mguni.
I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates the necessity for the private sector to open their businesses to the youth for internships and apprentices, in line with the Youth Employment Accord signed a few years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. AIC. Abasale gona agang abao. ANC Babumguni omunye.
Correctly so, House Chair, he is my elder brother. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, the House debates strengthening South Africa's postgraduate training in research and innovation as a means to improve the country's global competitiveness. I so move. Thank you.
Sithokoze. APC Sebakhambile. PAC Sebakhambile. DA.
Thank you, Chair. I hereby move on behalf of the Democratic Alliance that at its next sitting, this House debates the environmental and health disaster due to the spillage of 4 million litres of raw sewage per day from the Groblersdal town flowing directly into the Olifants River. Why the Sekhukhune District Municipality is unmoved by this since December 2016, and the need for an urgent debate on the balance of the 84% of the 927 sewer plants that is also spilling sewer in our rivers. I move, sir.
Thank you. ANC, Akbara Let Madela.
Thank you, House Chair. I move on behalf of the ANC that in its next sitting, this House debates sustaining campaigns against racism, sexism, homophobia, and xenophobia. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bahlonishwa lokho kusifikisa emaphethelweni womhlelo lethu lanamhlanje indlu ingaphakama inaga ilale. Yini Mam Khawuli?
I was very proud of you. Very proud.